Welcome back to the mid-season Invitational. My name is Finch, and we're happy to have you here this week. We just saw Armada win in the semis, make their all the way to the finals of the play-in bracket, but we still have to go to the other side of the bracket and see who's going to make it. It's going to be Sanguine, you see behind me, up against Simplicity, and to help me out with it, I do have Melissa Taco Posada still here with me. Taco, this matchup, as good as the last one was, might even be better.
It's a possibility. I definitely wouldn't brush it past in the slightest. But Sanguine, the last hope for LATAM, coming in hot,
right.
I think, with a lot of momentum off of their set win yesterday. And I'm sure that the guys are feeling pretty good about it.
I think so, too. And Sanguine aren't the only ones that are technically the last hope, right? I mean, because Flashpoint dropped out, technically Simplicity are carrying that SML EU torch at this point as well. So I know all these regions would like to be well represented here. But if you all aren't as familiar with this Sanguine roster, I recommend you get familiar quick because I think they might be sticking around. This team is tough. They've been hanging around for a while, playing together, even back to when it was the SGS. This team was very much similar to how it's currently constituted, and they're certainly strong in their own right. Taco, I mean, how confident do you feel about this Sanguine roster here today, and what do you like about them?
Well, man on the screen, man of the hour, Panitom is actually, I think, one of the main reasons why this team has had so much success. His synergy with Sheento is phenomenal, and it's interesting to me how consistently Sanguine is able to work through Sheento in that mid lane, and it's largely because of the fact that he has reliable setup options for members like Panitom, like Ronngyu. Kind of sucks for Sanguine that they don't have hardcore with them here at the LAN. Unfortunately, he was unable to make it here due to some visa complications, but the feeling that they have isn't half bad either. Oxy definitely held his own in his set yesterday.
I think so, too. I think Oxy even found a solo kill at one point, too, so certainly is looking comfortable. And it was interesting. You know, we saw a lot of focus on Oxy yesterday in the solo lane, which I don't think is the way that we'll be seeing it played by Simplicity. As good of a job as he's done stepping in, he's definitely not going to be the focal point for this team. They're not going to play through him. I think you need to look towards Sheento or Panitom for what it's worth from where I'm sitting. Try and shut one of those guys down, but that's easier said than done.
Hey, you can never count out Netrioid either.
Exactly,
I think that Netrioid has also been a hunter who's really come into his own as of late. I think that playing in the North American minor league up against the likes of members like Snoopy, for example, has given him some really good progress over this Season 6 so far, but you have to keep in mind, too, for those of you that might have missed it, the team that Sanguine defeated to get here was actually the rival console Xbox team, and those guys are nothing to scoff at. Definitely some really strong competition there that just wasn't able to hold up against Sanguine's pressure, but still gave Sanguine a decent run for their money, and Sanguine admitted it themselves that, hey, there was clearly some mistakes that we probably shouldn't have allowed to happen, and things like that you can't really afford against teams like Simplicity.
No, not at all. They're not going to give you any room, I think, to breathe or to have any of those errors. The margin for error, I think is a better way to say it, feels very small up against Simplicity because this really does feel like we talked about with Armada, basically an SPL caliber team over there with Simplicity. So someone like Sanguine is going to absolutely make sure they can play tight and clean, but they absolutely can. And like I said, I think a lot of it's through Sheento. I think some teams maybe devalue them a little bit. I hear a lot of people saying that when Sheento carries, that's when they win. I think Sheento helps a lot, but they definitely have players that can carry aside from him.
Sanguine are really good at working through Sheento because it's just what is most comfortable for their playstyle. They're a really aggressive unit, and all in all, I think that because they have such sound side lanes typically, that's another reason why they're able to kind of centralize more so around Sheento, because they just utilize some of that side lane pressure to factor into the mid lane aggression.
It's a great point. When you can trust that your side lanes are taking care of themselves, and make it a lot easier for you to focus on the mid and get that guy into a good position. But we are ready to hear a little bit about what's going on in the minds there of Sanguine. The interview with Ronngyu is ready now.
Hello and welcome back. Tom Badger here next to Ronngyu, the support for Sanguine Esports. First off, you guys have been waiting a long time. You were talking about that. Are you excited for this match?
Yeah, we've been waiting to face Simplicity since like first day we arrived here because we know it's probably the rival that we're facing. So we're excited to play against them.
What kind of preparations have you made for Simplicity, knowing that you'd be going up against them?
We've been watching his SML games, also the games that we're playing against. I think they play Outcall maybe. So we kind of scream them too, and we are like, we're just gonna play against them, and that's it. We're just gonna like play and see how it goes.
So Sanguine style, what is it about your team that's gonna beat Simplicity in this best of 3?
We're gonna have to win red side because we don't have Jarkor in the blue side, so we have to focus red side all the time.
Now I know Sanguine, you guys have a ton of fans at home. This is your floor. Say what up to your fans.
Un saludo a todos los de LATAM porque sabemos que hemos llegado acá con un suplente, pero no los queremos dejar hasta acá. Queremos llegar hasta la final y hasta la mesa y arriba LATAM.
There it is. I got the last bit. Let's go LATAM. Ronngyu, good luck, and we'll see how it goes. Back to you guys on the desk.
Hey, I don't want to show any bias, but I'm down for some Let's Go Lat. Hey, I'm glad these Sanguine guys are in good spirits. And that has been the way they've been as long as I talked to them. I talked to them over Sunday, and they were confident, even though they knew they weren't going to have Yarkor here with them. But they're absolutely going to have their work cut out, Taco. Simplicity are the team that stands across from them on the other side, and it's stacked from top to bottom with talent. I mean, maniaKK, Faeles, Deathpanter, they all come to mind when you mention some strong players that are right there on the edge. It could be at the SPL if some spots opened up. Where do you look at when you look at this Simplicity team?
I think first you have to take a look at Genetics. He's honestly been, I think, a beacon of support. No pun intended, by the way, but maybe I'll just take it. He's quite literally the support for Simplicity, and he has done a phenomenal job. I think the man looks like he belongs in the SPL as is. I would not be surprised if we see him wind up in the SPL in Phase 2 even, but he kind of reminds me of Raffer back when Raffer was first making his introduction to the Pro League play. And what I mean by that is that Genetics feels like a very flexible player. He's got a relatively aggressive God pull, but more importantly than that, he's just so damn good at baiting people into very bad situations. Yeah,
not just that, but I mean, you can bait people into bad situations when you know you've got the strong follow-up, like from someone like Faeles who's in the jungle for them. And Faeles is a guy that I know has had some struggles when he's been up at the higher level, but he's really come into his own this last year and a half or so, I would say. He's looked like at that kind of mechanical beast that everyone else says that he is. And he's got to put that on display here, man. If he's going up against Panitom in the jungle, life's not going to be easy for him. So he's got to play at the level that you hear other, European players say that he can. I hear it all the time that we haven't seen him quite perform the level they know he can. Well, show it to us here.
Yeah, don't let those SK days fool you. I know that was a rough time for Faeles. It was a rough time for every member of that roster, but let's all just remember what happened with Funballer, for example.
Yeah.
So it's not like Faeles is incapable of performing. I think that he just needed the right environment to do so, and Simplicity feels a lot more like that because Faeles has, I think it kind of goes without saying, but he's definitely had a lot more synergy alongside of Deathpanter. Those two have worked almost flawlessly hand in hand in order to even make themselves come here as the #1 European scene. I mean, they started off this Phase 1 in Season 6 pretty rough. They were not looking too hot. Flashpoint was looking like the clear victor, and it was kind of tough to say where Simplicity might wind up, but the team, once they did heat up a little bit and kind of find their stride, find their momentum, it's been difficult, I think, for a lot of teams trying to shut them down.
That's a great point. It's not been an easy path for this team to make it here at all. I mean, consider some of the other squads out there. There's a squad with Pretty Prime and Demi on it. They have to worry about it. Like you said, Flashpoint is out there too, making life difficult for this squad. So that they even made it to this point is impressive, but I think their sights are a little bit higher. They want to be able to not just make it through play-ins, but even get there and challenge some of these SPL squads, though it will not be easy for them. To get an idea of where their heads are moving into this important set, let's talk a little bit to the coach in the interview.
What up, SMITE fans? Tom Badger here one more time. We're up in the Simplicity booth. This time around, I've got the coach. It's Hawk for Simplicity. How you doing, man? Introduce yourself.
Doing great. Been coaching these guys for like a few months now. Just excited to be here.
Fantastic. You said you've been coaching them for a couple of months. What is your style of play? What's your strategy? How have you helped this team?
I think we just play standard SMITE, really. We're there for buffs on time. That's it, really. We just play pressure early on, invade buffs on time, and we're good.
Play your own game. These guys seem to be ready for the game to go. I see Genetics kind of giggling. How are you feeling? You seem to be a little bit more kind of on the point.
I mean, I'm like the dad of the team. They're like super confident, but at the same time, I'm trying to like keep them all in check because some people can get a little bit too cocky sometimes. Yeah. My support player. Yeah, that's it really.
Well, with that said, going up against the Latin American squad, the Sanguine Esports, what is it about them that makes them a good opposition? How are you going to win here today?
I mean, they're the first NA-SML team that we play, and from what we've seen, they didn't look great against like the other Europeans. I think they barely beat them, and so that gives us confidence because we think we're the best team in Europe after all the teams travel to NA. Yeah, that's it really. That's why we have a good matchup.
There it is, confident word. The best team in Europe coming here from Simplicity. Good luck in your matches. Back to you guys on the desk.
Well, glad to see some confidence there from Coach Hawk. Best team that's still in Europe. Hey, I mean, not a whole lot accomplished for that title, so I like the confidence there. But I think he's right to say that this is a team that they can beat. Sanguine, I expect this to be a really good match. Sanguine can obviously be tough, but this is not out of reach for the Simplicity roster. Keep that team focused, and this is one they can definitely win.
Simplicity should be careful, though, because trying to base today's performance for Sanguine off of a set that occurred yesterday, while I can understand it to a certain degree, I think that Sanguine are also a team that's kind of notorious for playing to the level of opposition that they're up against, and Simplicity is certainly going to raise the bar. No slight against those rival guys by any means, but Simplicity is definitely a top contender coming out of that European minor league, and Sanguine know that they're underdogs. They don't really have a whole lot to lose here. Nobody's really expecting Sanguine to win, I think, for the most part, other than the fan base, of course. Shout outs to those guys. And I completely understand why you'd want to rally behind the LATAM fellows over there on Sanguine. It's going to be a tough matchup, but Simplicity sounded maybe a little too confident.
Well, they've gotten maniaKK over there in the solo lane going up against, in this case, a sub. One with plenty of experience. Oxy's been around the scene for a minute now, but it's hard to top someone like maniaKK. I mean, this guy has been on all kinds of top teams. He had a long run there with Energy for a while where he looked really strong, so I don't know, man. That's a tough matchup. Sanguine said they want to try and focus on the duo side of the map. They know they probably won't be able to outclass maniaKK there, so Simplicity can't let them detract focus onto that matchup. They need to try and bully over in solo and then have maniaKK rotate.
Already a tough decision, though, needing to be made from Simplicity. Sanguine taking shots directly towards solo, removing that Osiris and the Jormungandr, both picks that maniaKK definitely likes to pursue, and Simplicity will answer back. I like the removal of Freya. It's too risky to permit Netrioid or Sheento to have that option.
That does mean, though, that Merlin's coming in, and you definitely don't want to give that one to Sheento, but he doesn't want it. The Muzen Cobb picked even over Merlin, and this could go mid or support, or not mid or hunter, excuse me. And I do think Muzen Cobb more likely feels a little bit mid, but I'm a bit surprised that they value the Muzen Cobb.
Probably, well, actually, I'm not sure. Merlin could be a solid response here for Simplicity, but if you're picking Merlin for Deathpanter here, that could be a little bit awkward because Sanguine have the flexibility right now with this on Muzen Cobb. It can be for Sheento or it could be for Netrioid.
Yes.
But I think that Simplicity might even choose to try and hold on to Deathpanter's mid lane pick to maybe try and force Sanguine into revealing which comes first. But Chronos, as that secondary option, he has also been heavily sought after by a lot of teams in competitive play. Definitely brings a lot of early game kill potential as well.
Naja comes in for Sanguine, someone we've seen a little bit less of lately, which has surprised me. Naja still plenty strong in the support role in the jungle wherever you want him, though with Horus locked in, it might be a little bit more like jungle Naja and support Horus. This god's got plenty to talk about. Knock-up stun, heals, the dash, and then, of course, there's the big flashy ultimate, which doesn't always get a ton of value, but he's plenty strong even without it.
Horus feels strongly, though, like a win more type of god. So
yes,
when I see Sanguine opting for Horus in their top three, that leads me to believe that Sanguine want that early game to be entirely in their favor. So they're going to come probably barreling straight into this one, and for Simplicity, it could be tough for Sanguine to try and overwhelm them outright. Chronos, King Arthur, Terra, these are all gods with a ton of self-sustain and survivability that are going to be difficult to get some early ganks off on successfully.
Yeah, and King Arthur is one that not only does maniaKK really like, but can absolutely bully a lane and then translate that lead into the rest of the map. So that is a bit scary that Simplicity have grabbed it. But I don't know, man. Sanguine's first picks here are no slouches by any means. Naja, Muzen Cobb, and Horus all give them great presence throughout the early game. Like you said, if they fall behind, the Horus is some dead weight. But if they don't fall behind, Horus is great, and he's a ton of setup, and he can actually provide some pretty relevant damage in his own right, too.
Stalemating as your worst-case scenario is essentially the idea here for Sanguine throughout the duration of those laning phases, but with Pele being removed, that does take away a pretty strong pressure option for Faeles here, but Faeles has kind of been all over the place. I'd like to see Ratatoskr, though, as a candidate for that fourth ban selection. That's another default go-to that Faeles really likes to lean on.
Taco, am I missing something? Merlin's still here, right? What's going on right now? I mean, I understand banning Zeus. Besides, it makes sense for Simplicity, right? Because if they want Merlin, they don't need to ban it in this spot, and they'll be picking right afterwards. But Sanguine not worried about it at this point. Maybe they're confident Chronos is going in that slot, or that Simplicity just don't want to play it. But, I mean, I don't know, man. I think you pick him.
I just don't think many mid laners want to try and tango with an Muzen Cobb. Merlin, as strong as he can be, is Still not going to typically overpower the Muzen Cobb, just too much clear potential,
Sure.
too much kill potential as well with the Stinger as soon as you level 5, and then the Merlin can't even flicker away.
You're right. I mean, the Muzen Cobb is a real bully in the middle lane. That's a lot of why his value has risen lately. And we saw what Griff was able to do with it last set. He wasn't in the middle lane, but the night and day difference between when he was on the Muzen Cobb and his other 2 games where he really struggled, I mean, a lot of it can be attributed, I think, to just how strong this god can be, especially in lane.
Definitely not fun to play against. That I know for sure. And Simplicity still sitting
You don't
heavy.
love playing against the bees, Taco,
You
and all the
know,
free
something
movement
about
speed,
the
attack
entire,
speed, and slows, and cripples.
No,
and
I love the enemy team being able to clear the wave with one ability. What are you talking about, Fish? That's sick.
That makes you happy. Simplicity thinking a good while on this next pick, and it's Ullr. Now that's a ton of pressure. We don't see Ullr as much anymore, but do you think we're seeing Chronos then ADC, Ullr mid in this scenario?
Habwa, Sanguine, I want to see it. Sheento, I know you got it for me too. I'm just curious as to whether or not I'll actually choose to bring it out.
And then put a Muzen Cobb ADC then for Netrioid, and then have Sheento play the Habwa.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's kind of along the lines of where I'm thinking. But the main reason for the Habwa is just because it's something that he knows. But Sanguine rather take their chances with the risk versus reward composition. If they can get this healer and sustain to actually stay viable throughout the early game portion, then Simplicity could be in some trouble here.
Well, now that they've picked up this Artio, so then Artio, do you think is solo to try and go up against the King Arthur and put that cripple field there for him? This works. You can pick up Guardian's Blessing. It's a little bit more okay if you lose pressure because you're on the Guardian, but still, it's kind of like giving maniaKK a free lane, I feel like.
Not necessarily. King Arthur is definitely going to have his clear potential slowed down from the Artio. While Artio, I don't expect her to have solo potential against maniaKK.
Right.
All Oxy's really looking to accomplish is just to keep maniaKK confined to that solo lane. You just don't want this Arthur being able to have any sort of early to mid-game influence by rotating out of that lane early on. Artio is safe. She can clear the waves reliably. She doesn't really have to put herself out of position against the King Arthur.
Well, Robin gives them some excellent dive position or dive potential to round out Simplicity's draft here. But remember earlier you were saying Horus feels like a god where we don't necessarily want to stalemate, you know, because he can feel kind of rough late. Well, now that you add in this Hell, that's a nice little insurance policy, isn't it? Even if you do fall behind, Hell's going to be great no matter what as long as you can get her there. Sanguine, though, still feels a little bit more all in to me. They really, really don't want to fall behind early.
I do think it's important to add, though, that as far as a Divine Ruin is concerned, it could be tough for Chronos to want to feel comfortable picking that one up. So I think that a lot of these anti-heal options are going to fall onto the responsibility of Ullr and the Ravana.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Hell, I'm not sure that that'll necessarily be enough. Simplicity are going to have to smother and take that Hell out before she has a chance to get those cleanses and those team heals off.
I imagine that's the Robin's job too, not just in terms of building the anti-heal, but just sitting on this Hell. That's why I do think they did a great job picking it here, because they don't have people who apply anti-heal particularly great or who dive the Hell particularly great for what it's worth. It's largely going to be up to Faeles, I imagine, who they're giving this Robin to try and get this job done. But just based on paper, what you're seeing here, you lean more towards Sanguine or Simplicity?
I like Sanguine's draft more, but I know what Simplicity are capable of.
Well, let's see if Simplicity are capable of as much as you think, or if the Sanguine draft will win out. Let's move into game number 1 with the casters.
Thank you so much, Finch and Taco on the desk. With myself, joined by Anatoly, and of course Doug in the observation booth here for this one. Sanguine, the LATAM team that's been around for a while now, with a very sustain-orientated composition put out here today. And my interest is going to be on how well Sheento can pilot this Hell in the mid lane.
I love the draft. Being able to protect the backline is key for Sanguine to survive against the nature of Simplicity. They played aggressive yesterday against Nemesis, probably going to play aggressive again today. Deathpanter on his signature Hunter middle. Ullr, I think, is the key to Simplicity's success. So Sanguine going to probably rely on Sheento's Hell, like you mentioned, probably picking up the Lotus Crown to get the protections, to synergize more with also Rongyu's heal that gives protection.
That's a good point. Hold that thought. Genetics just blinked over a wall here on the Terra to try and get in range to try and cause problems at the speed buff. We're going to see Sheento just fall straight to the mid lane as the buff is stripped away by Genetics. He puts his hand in the air in justice triumph, knowing that that blink investment ends up playing dividends for the young support player.
What a smart play out of Genetics. He just played complete mind games there, being able to blink over a potential ward that was somewhere around the corner. So completely blindsiding Sanguine.
Oxiledeon had a chance there to put a bit of pressure on maniaKK, but with sustained potions ticking, not too much problems for the young Portuguese powerhouse maniaKK back in action once again. Simplicity, the last European bastion standing. And I don't say that jokingly because, you know, all the teams live in NA these days, so Simplicity really is the European representative at this tournament.
With Flashpoint losing to Hype Unit, a very impressive performance from the console scene. Fails, though, in a little bit of trouble.
Beads used and a trade is going to happen. Panitom will get the kill onto Faeles, and Panther couldn't get a turnaround. The blinking from Ronngyu might just be right, and it is, as Ronngyu with the blink fracture combo updraft will set up a second kill for Sanguine. And already I think Hawk might be eating a couple of words from that interview.
Man, even though Simplicity might have stolen away that speed buff, I'd rather be in Sanguine's shoes here. With 2 early kills like this, Panitom can easily still play catch-up. He even picked up the red buff to compensate for not being able to pick up his own speed buff. A great start getting that first blood. Great rotation from Ronngyu, leaving Netrioid alone just for a moment to get a second kill.
Yeah, I think the kill onto the Panitom sash-in is the surprising one for me, mainly because I don't think a lot of people expect the aggression at that level, especially onto a Ravana. Combination in the mid lane. I think that kind of caught Simplicity with the pants down a little bit there. They were a bit surprised by that one and get punished quite heavily through it.
See, Ravana can definitely get away from those plays, but not this early in the game. Being only level 2, you only have access to the overhead kick and the Prada onslaught.
Genetics has the blink available. Netrioid wants to box with StreakUp, but didn't realize the tower was right behind him. The good news is, though, beads were consumed by Netrioid, and he will survive for the time being. But it's now going to be a window where ganks are definitely susceptible to this Hunter.
This is the matchup to watch in the whole entire set. The Hunter versus Hunter matchup. Both of them really popped off in their former sets. StreakUp playing the Merlin and the Chronos against Nemesis didn't give up a single death. Whereas Netrioid also had a great showing on the Muzen going 4-1-10, and then 13-1-4 on the Jing way. I expect a lot of fireworks, so any sort of support rotations or even jungle ganks to tip the scales could be the advantage to open the Gold Fury.
Well, the blue buff this time on the right-hand side won't be invaded by Simplicity, as now Panitom will make it over here. And full credit to Panitom as well, take into account the first blood came because of his engagement there, and it was also the fact that he lost his speed buff early on as well. This was a big swing for Sanguine to get back onto an even keel and now get a bit of a lead because of it.
Honestly, it probably favored Sanguine that he was able to at least pick up the red buff to get extra damage in that small encounter. And obviously you can't forget from Ronngyu making it a 3-on-1 to get that second kill. Panitom, not a stranger to playing aggressive. He put himself in a great position and he had trust in his teammates to capitalize.
Now there's been a little bit of talk so far, Totally, about the amount of sustain that's going to be available for Sanguine in this composition. Every single one of them actually has sustain in their kit somewhere. That's including if you include the hives from the likes of an Muzen Cobb. Anti-heal is going to be important, and I'm looking at Ravana and I'm looking at Ullr. They both brawlers, beat stick gods, but is a brawler's going to be enough? They're going to need Pestilence somewhere too, surely.
I agree that healing might be an issue, but I'm actually more worried about the mobility between the Hell Heal, between the Muzen Cobb hives. Like, sure, you can definitely prevent the healing, but are you going to be preventing the extra movement speed increase, especially when you got to the skies from Ronngyu for engagement purposes, for disengagement purposes? Sanguine are covering a lot of options with their composition. They're definitely geared more towards this mid to late game, so Panitom needs to focus more on that early phase, rushing the Blackthorns.
Well, so far in the solo lane, Oxiledeon has done a very good job of just holding the lane, and that seems to have been the call here. Up against the King Arthur, you're not necessarily going to find a kill, but if we can kind of neutralize maniaKK a little bit, keep him busy and just dealing with the coups and not rotating, this should pay off for Sanguine, hopefully, in the team fights.
This is a good showing from the substitute out of Sanguine. Replacing Yarkor, never an easy thing, but against aggressive maniaKK, you gotta be mindful about all that damage. That's why he's opted for a passive Guardian early, going for not the Guardian's Blessing this time around. He just wants to get some sustain and probably gonna rush a utility Pythax piece.
Yeah, that Pythax piece has come to fruition a little bit more this season. The health and extra sustain for yourself and your teammates is pretty solid. Simplicity, though, on this right-hand side, have a little bit of pressure, but we're going to get a pause out of Sanguine here.
It's also about a 10% cooldown reduction on this item, so Oxy is going to be able to spam those abilities. The combination of Pythax Piece and Breastplate of Valor is when Oxy's probably going to start taking over that lane, but then you also have to fit in boots. So it might be until level 11 where you'll see any action from the Artio.
Quick pause coming out here, and obviously we're not sure exactly what it is, so just give him a minute. But what we could tell on the map is obviously Oxy getting pressured underneath his tier 1 at half health here. So this could be a blue buff invade from Simplicity coming through, and it'll be just that. Panitom will fall back to that left-hand side, and that seems to be what Simplicity's game plan will be, trying to pressure a little bit more onto this Artio.
We heard Hawk, the coach from Simplicity, talk about their game plan, and he was definitely focused about being on time about buffs, invades, and thus far, Simplicity have done a good job about the speed buff, about the blue buff, and 6 minutes in, that's a start. You know, giving up 2 deaths, not the end of the world, because the game is still very even in the gold category.
Ronngyu going to be playing the Horus, someone that we've seen a little bit more of as this tournament has gone on too. And Horus is going to be a kind of nice little catch situation here for the boys of Sanguine. I think he can be very aggressive with the fact he can surge to a teamer that's farther forward. Take into account you could have Panitom Sash into a surge from Ronngyu to close the gap and set up some more CC. Or he can also play the Peel Factor on the backline if required.
That's the mobility and gap closing that Sanguine just have for themselves to cut the distance. And thus far, they don't want to utilize it offensively quite yet. They're kind of waiting for Simplicity to be a little bit out of position. And it seems that it's the red squad looking to make a play.
And they're all around this right-hand side. Harpies right now, ward down. And a blinking from Ronngyu onto Deathpanter in the back, followed by a sash. That'll get the beads out of Deathpanter. But all the while, Faeles got a bit of free time on Sheento. And Sheento could be under a bit of pressure. He'll get back to his tier 1, but Faeles just bit off more than he could chew as Panitom and Ronngyu collapsed and pick up another kill for Sanguine.
A smart play from Faeles, diving the backline with his blink, or sorry, with his ultimate, but it couldn't really get the damage off. He doesn't have the items necessary to full burst the hell, especially the anti-healing that we were mentioning, and as a result, another easy kill for Sanguine.
Well, StreakUp just tried to abuse the fact that the red buff was open on this left-hand side of that fight in mid, but now he's had to rewind into a dangerous spot. Or is it Netrioid under pressure? He has to beads away from the stun. The damage from StreakUp's good. Ronngyu comes into the mix, though, to give some support. And to the skies he goes, and StreakUp's going to know where he's landing. It's right on his face. Panitom with his 2nd kill and his 4th involvement of the game.
Here comes the cavalry, not able to land the axe stun from Deathpanter. Ring around the rosy of that little pillar. Very difficult to find the right hitbox to connect that stun, and the heals from Sanguine are starting to show into effect because that was very close to a kill as it could have possibly been.
You mentioned the Lotus Crown potentially for Sheento in this game on Hell as well. Might not be the first time he picks up, obviously he's already gone Book of Toth into boots, but I can see it come into play a little bit longer. And when you take into account that Horus also has that surge that gives protections too, there is a ton of protections that Sanguine are going to be getting consistently in these team fights.
Hard to balance anti-healing and penetration. Obviously Divine Ruin having a little bit of both, but Deathpanter's playing the Ullr, not going to be having that, so he's going to rely on that Brawler speed stack, but instead rushing the Transcendence, thinking about getting that ultimate power spike, but struggling thus far. 2 levels behind with that 1 death. It was Sheento able to maximize his farming potential.
Now the question is, if you're Simplicity here, Anatoly, what do? I mean, you're 4 kills down early on. The goal difference, it's marginal at best between the two at the moment because you've been invading buffs consistently. Do you worry at this point? Are you concerned about, well, we're having issues killing them. We can get them semi-low, but then they heal back up again.
They tried a couple times to find the kills, and I'm scrapping any idea of actually PvPing. I'm thinking about ways to maximize the PvE instead.
Well, there's an Maljar ultimate in the mid lane, and that's on Deathpanter. As he lands, Genetics will use the ultimate from Terra to help make sure his teammate gets away. And he will stand tall as long as he can in that middle area. The Sanguine continue to be the ones on the aggression so far.
I'm not too mad about that play. Sanguine capitalizing on 20 seconds remaining from Deathpanter's speeds. Having the health advantage, they were thinking about maybe invading, but red buff not up. And Simplicity need to find ways of invading buffs without these encounters, because in a long drawn-out engagement, Sanguine's just going to out-heal them at the end of the day, and the burst potential isn't quite there from Simplicity yet, unless maniaKK has something to say about it.
Blinking from Genetics, he's going to put the walls behind Sheento, who realized that maniaKK was there. maniaKK going to end up ulting Ronngyu, and I don't think that was a target he was after. Because of that, Sheento gets the kill on Genetics, and now it's maniaKK surrounded and crippled. He can't get away. Sheento will get another kill. maniaKK puts his head in his hands as Sanguine get their 6th last kill of the game now.
That was an odd idea from maniaKK because he only really had genetics beside him. Faeles was just too far away.
Good slash again from Panitom. Now just get the overhead kick out of Faeles. But all the while, Sanguine starting to motion towards his Gold Fury. It does have a ward down here, Tolly. Does Simplicity try and defend this, you reckon?
They should. StreakUp coming around the corner, and he's going to go onto the blind side, although there was a ward from Sanguine. Panitom sniffing him out.
And Panitom doing the right thing to locate where StreakUp is. Sanguine will get the Gold Fury, and you know what? StreakUp could be in a ton of pressure now too. Can he get the rewind off in time? He won't get an option to. The stinger that came through there from Netrioid definitely secured the kill. And that's 7 now for Sanguine, as even cheeky old Oxiledeon on this right-hand side is going to trip a blue buff. Sure, give him a kill. Go on, be nice.
They have to find the kill here because they need something to get back into this game. Maybe go for a Pyromancer if you're Simplicity, knowing that Sanguine just finished that Gold Fury, but instead looking for the blue buff invade. And Sanguine not only getting the Gold Fury, but the way they got this Gold Fury, they identified where the only steal potential threat was, walking over the ward. Unfortunately for StreakUp, not aware that that was positioned there. He couldn't even escape anyway, because if he tried to rewind, he would have been stationary for about that 1 second, and he was in lethal range of even a Naja basic to seal the deal.
I agree. I don't think it was worth trying to rewind. It's just that it was available, you know? Sometimes you expected maybe see it here. At this moment in time, though, if you're Simplicity or an EU fanboy, the one thing you're looking for now is a little bit of relaxation, a little bit of calm, and not go too crazy at the moment. Simplicity aren't out of this game at all. They've just got to be patient with their windows now.
Whenever you have a strength, you gotta lean on it. And the strength from Simplicity is maniaKK. A 1-level lead on this Arthur, about to hit level 13 momentarily, is where they can lean on.
Oh, that sash just clipped round the corner onto Deathpanter from Panitom. And Netrioid takes out genetics with a crippled stinger shot. Panitom a little bit far forward, and it looks like a cursed donk early on coming out from maniaKK, but it's not going to be enough to get a kill at all. Sheento is popping off in the mid lane. 4-0 on 4, and now 4 members strong. Sanguine are looking for a tier 1 tower.
As they should. Even though Panitom missed his ultimate, putting him out of position, his teammates were able to bail him out of that one. Sanguine, they got the Gold Fury about 2 minutes ago, and now rewarded with a tier 1 mid tower.
And maybe even go straight over towards this Pyromancer is where they're heading now. Fire Giant might be a little bit, you know, too far forward, but definitely a Pyro here on this right-hand side. And you know there's going to be I'm a little bit concerned for Simplicity already. Just the fact that maniaKK made that rotation very early to get over there, get the Ankh popped. It wasn't an upgraded Cursed Donk, so it won't do more damage to people, but it does reduce healing, and it still wasn't enough to turn anything around there.
That is a big difference between an upgrade or not. Left-hand side, though, StreakUp committing to a tower push, forced to use the ultimate. Panitom not going to try to chase that one down, as Simplicity are looking for anything. They're trying to just kind of drag any sort of water from this cactus that they can pull, but Sanguine aren't giving anything back, even defending a tier 1 tower on the left.
And now Sanguine just going to have to wait for the next opportunity to maybe find a pick. They've been playing a lot through Panitom and Sheento for the most part in this game. Netrioid has definitely had a good performance so far, and you can't discredit Ronngyu being involved with 8 of the 9 kills they've found themselves here. All the while, they've just not paid any attention at all towards the solo lane, which makes a lot of sense considering they are using a substitute for this tournament.
And Sanguine's composition, they've played it very in a creative fashion. This is not the most conventional draft, but they're certainly making it work the way they play together. The way you mentioned Panitom making all these risky plays. It was high risk, but very high reward on top of it. As Simplicity kind of got caught slipping, not really, I think, respecting the turnaround potential from Sanguine, even in the early game.
StreakUp getting pressured by Ronngyu here, but the red buff is spawned for Simplicity, and there's an engage going on in the jungle at the same time. Sheento should get some decent damage off in genetics, and it's so good, in fact, that it will at least get the ultimate out from him too.
That's a very bad feeling if you're Genetics and Simplicity, to be forced to use a 1-player Terra ultimate just to disengage, because you know that if you die, Sanguine might even go for a tier 2 tower, so your life is actually worth using that Terra ultimate to make sure that Sanguine don't get an extra 1,500 gold.
You can definitely get a sense from Sanguine that they're on the prowl, they're on the hunt, looking for targets at any opportunity. Great wall from Genetics after the fact, though, to shut down Ronngyu and Panitom from collapsing on Deathpanter there. But they're hunted like a pack of sharks here.
Sanguine are not going to stop the pressure entirely, as they're kind of also using Sheento all the way in the backside. They're using Panitom Panitom as a bait tactic. They want him to take all this damage.
He done took a ton there, though, as well, and most of these CDs are down, but Deathpanter coming in will force Panitom to use his ultimate defensively. maniaKK trying to make this rotation to maybe find an impact here, but already Sheento gets a bit of a heal from Panitom, a bit of a heal onto Panitom, and with that, the pressure's relieved, and Faeles did trade out his ultimate out for Panitom.
That's right, but the beads was used from Panitom, so slight advantage goes to Simplicity. Never a good feeling when you can't confirm a kill around your own speed buff. Simplicity trying to find it, but just no success.
I'm okay with it, because from Panitom's point of view, if you think about it, he had 4 people technically busy trying to maybe find a pick onto him, wasting ultimates. They're not farming, whereas the rest of his team are in a better position to continue to do so. The gold lead has stretched again then. Just a little bit further towards that 5,000 gold mark. The experience, 6,000 experience, that's a huge at 16 minutes.
That was a good point that you mentioned earlier about buying time. If Panitom had anybody next to him all that time with some healing, with a little bit of extra damage, makes it difficult for Simplicity to fight into it, but now they have to try to defend the second Fury of the game.
Simplicity here is a whole 5-man unit this time round, though, and a couple more relics in tow. Sanguine started the primal, but reset it at 50% as Simplicity positioned to engage. It looks like Sanguine want to fight. They keep resetting the Fury. They're trying to bring Simplicity in and doing it on their terms. Oxy on the front side here with that Artio. He's going to get a good stinger off. Thanks to the help of Netrioid. The stun was good, and maniaKK's already dead. Fails to the backside's overhead kick is down, but StreakUp did take out Panitom, and that's a big kill as StreakUp gets the rewind off. Falls back to the Forces team. Blink away from Genetics as StreakUp under pressure.
And now he's going to fall. No rewind for him. The healing starting to really show. Sanguine did lose Panitom, but with a valuable Primal Fury is going to help them towards the late game objective control once they do look for the Fire Giant. And Sanguine were never in danger of ever even losing this Fury. They were constantly baiting Simplicity to come closer and closer. No one was low, double heal coming up. maniaKK took one step too far forward, ran into the double cripple between a Muzen Cobb and the Artio. He dropped like a fly.
This is playing a lead. That's what Sanguine's doing. They really have gathered themselves a lead, and they're actually playing through it. Happy to take the fights to the Fury. Obviously, that Fury that went down was a Primal, and it's one of the newer Furies added to the game this year. That Primal Fury will give you a little bit more damage on destroying jungle objectives, specifically and mainly to kill the Fire Giant, which will bring it down, make it a little bit easier to kill, so you're not taking too much damage.
7% faster to be exact. And not only that, with some of the also recent changes, 7% less damage taken from the Fire Giant.
Huge.
Which matters once the 30-minute mark crosses, once that Fire Giant becomes enhanced. So much extra damage you got to avoid, but if I'm Sanguine, not too worried about it with all the sustain anyway.
Well, speaking of Sanguine, they've already started to group up around the Fire Giant pit now. Pyromancer has spawned once more. StreakUp returns to the left-hand side to continue farming there, and the question would be is where Netrioid goes, and I think that's kind of the decision he's trying to make here. Are we doing the Pyro, or do I need to go back to lane? Call seems to be defend that tier 1 tower on the left-hand side. Sanguine in a very comfortable position at the moment. Are they in a clock at all here, Sanguine, do you feel, Totally? Is there any rush for them to try and close this game out quick? Because they've set a pretty quick pace so far.
I don't think that they are on a clock. I'm not too worried about Deathpanter's damage in the late game. With double cripples, the way maniaKK fell, yeah, he can get a little tankier, but you can control him long enough for your heals to become a factor.
Could Chronos become a problem?
Chronos is the only one that can really become an issue because of his passive, giving 2 magical damage for every minute. But outside of that, I'm not super worried because of the sheer cripple control. Not only countering maniaKK, but Genetics as well. Not having the dash available, now you're stripping away the CC potential from the side of Simplicity.
And the relic situation, you can see that Ankh is online for maniaKK. No secondary Ankh here. There is a girdle available for Genetics, though, to help burst down the objectives. Interestingly enough, to see Ronngyu picking up an Ankh this game. It's not often you generally see it against just the Terra, which is their main form of sustain here, but it does proc off Gladiator Shield as well, I believe, so that will allow a little bit of anti-heal there.
I think it's to burn maniaKK, that is the goal. And talking about Fire Giant earlier on, I was not expecting a 19-minute one, and Sanguine feeling very confident.
Well, Simplicity have an idea this is going on. They're all in the sort of position around the wings. They're letting Sanguine do most of the work. Look at the Sanguine's health bars though, relatively healthy at the moment. The pools have spawned and the jukes around it, not the greatest, but not the worst I've seen so far this year. Fire Giant getting below 20%. Now Maniac stretches in from one side, but keep an eye on Faeles as Genetics blinks in, gets an ult on the whole team, and Faeles jumps in, and Simplicity get the Fire Giant. Netrioid takes down Genetics, but StreakUp has got a double kill, and Sheento's dead. That's a major healer out of the fray. Ronngyu, you can't stand there, mate. You're taking damage. Panther takes him down, and Simplicity are now routing through Sanguine.
Oh no, only Panitom alive now. The positioning from StreakUp was a flank around the backhand side. A great deicide coming out as Faeles wraps this up.
No.
But it was the engage from Genetics.
Can they end off this?
No, there's no way they're
Are you
gonna.
sure?
That was a close one.
I have an outside suspicion. they could.
Actually,
I don't think they will go for it.
it's
Totally,
risky.
but
They
I can see
shouldn't.
the numbers.
They shouldn't
They
go
won't.
for
They
it.
won't.
Oxy's up, Rongyu's up in a 4-on-3, 4-on-2 situation. No, it's not worth
I think
it.
for the highlight reel, they should have, but I understand why.
The same idea as to why Sanguine started the Fire Giant is why Simplicity probably not going to do the Titan. It was too early to go for this Fire Giant. The vision control from Simplicity, they saw the health bar of the Fire Giant as it got really, really close, and they knew Sanguine were going to commit at that point. Genetics comes in perfectly with his blink, hits all 5 Sanguine members with that Earth and Fury. Nobody paid attention to StreakUp because he was able to wrap around the backhand side, and that was the key to Simplicity's success.
Should that have been a reset from Sanguine the moment Genetics blinks in there, or should they have committed to it? Because they committed and they lose. They know the gods they're against. I think the commit was the wrong call.
Let me give you the real answer. They shouldn't have even started it.
Sure.
Because at 19 minutes in, they were only up 5,000 gold. The experience lead wasn't quite there. Like, baiting out a Gold Fury is way different than baiting out a Fire Giant because that Ring of Fire makes it discouraging from resetting the aggro. So I think it was a wrong idea to make the call, and at that point they should have disengaged a lot earlier. Look for a pick. The same way they looked for a pick onto Maniac or on the Gold Fury is how they should have committed to a pick earlier.
Now we are discussing the mistakes that Sanguine may have made in this game so far, but full credit to Simplicity at how they managed to get back into this game now. They were down a considerable amount for a moment or two, but that Fire Giant call from them and their choice of defense and how they went about it has really paid dividends for them. Not only do they still have the Fire Giant for a good minute and a half here as the next Fury spawned, but they got a Phoenix on the right-hand side, which is so detrimental now to Sanguine, who are now on the back foot.
And they need to use that to their strength. They need to split push the left side while there's Fire Minions on the right. Somebody from Sanguine is going to have to eventually lean on that lane. They don't want to take their Titan chip damage, and there could be more gold added for Simplicity as a result.
Well, you see Netrioid going back to base there to deal with the right-hand side. Simplicity will take the Oni Fury. Oxy was just watching on there, not much he could do. He is 2 levels down from the solo lane position, Oxy here, on that Artio up against Maniac, but his job in the laning phase has subsided. Simplicity, though, now barreling down the mid lane. They're going to get themselves a tier 1 tower and look for the tier 2. Chronos is with them. Chronos, one of the quickest at killing towers in the game. And they've also got an Ullr if they need it, but Ronngyu committed, and Ronngyu is already gone. Oxy could fall soon after. The Thorns were there, but he wasn't anymore. Panitom now on the run, as is Sheento. Sheento could fall after the Aegis. Maniac will get credit for the kill. No one's paying attention to the tier 2 tower. Maniac wants blood.
Hindu Man, Simplicity are feeling it right now after that Fire Giant steal, after that deicide, after the right side Phoenix, and even after these 3 kills. This is where they're going to go for the end.
And this is the moment where you sit there and you go, this is why we're patient. This is why you wait for your opportunity. Simplicity had the opportunity of the Fire Giant, and they have grabbed it with both hands. It was moments away potentially from Sanguine winning this whole thing, but it's not going to be.
Wait.
At least wait now.
Hindu Man,
See?
we have to wait.
See, totally.
My God.
You notice how I just like stalled that out there? I ain't gonna cast a curse there. I ain't gonna make a mistake. It's been too many years, son. You always hold it just in case. Sanguine, though, with a very good defense. I don't think it really matters in fairness, Tolly, because looking at that Titan now, a strong gust of wind could knock it over.
Never forget that launch tournament comeback that COG did
There's been a few.
up against Xing's team.
That was a long time ago, yeah.
That was
I
a
know,
long
I know
time
which one
ago.
you're talking about. That was before my time, funny enough. But yeah,
This
here we
is-
go.
I'm still not worried if I'm Simplicity, that Titan is dangerously low. Even though the right side Phoenix is respawning, all 3 Phoenixes need to be up before the Titan starts regaining health. So there's still plenty of time that Simplicity can play around that Titan, whether they want to either all in commit to it or just kind of leave that as bait and then focus on the next Fire Giant due to respawn.
I think if we look back at that play at the Titan there overall and what just happened, if Sanguine win this game, it's definitely something to talk about. But
Yes.
at the moment, I don't think it's that big of an issue for Simplicity. Look at the fight that happened to get to that point, though, with the tier 2 tower in the mid lane.
Yes.
Ronngyu engaged and disappeared. So did Oxy.
He did engage, and it was too early, and I'll tell you why, because Netrioid was still rotating back from defending the right side lane. He wasn't even in position to follow up, and all the members from Sanguine were staggered in terms of the engagement. So a little bit of disconnect between Ronngyu and the rest of his team.
Fire Giant started up by Simplicity, dropped below 20% already. maniaKK on Zoji, Rongyu's in there, but he won't be in there in time to stop the Fire Giant going to Simplicity. Has to dash away to safety as Faeles jumps on in, looking for the support player from Sanguine. Now Faeles under pressure as the damage comes through. The bees are causing problems for the backline of Simplicity now. Sheento gets the kill on Faeles. maniaKK dashes in, and you know what? Sanguine are back in the game again!
Deathpanter's even going to drop as well, leaving only 2 Simplicity members. How can this even happen? Now Genetics is thinking about, well, should I even go for the Yen here, trying to buy time? Panitom going to have to worry about some of those fire minutes in the mid lane. Look where StreakUp is heading.
Yeah, look at where Genetics is too. I think they're both thinking about going for a cheeky little back door if it's open, but I know that Panitom's here for that reason. He's on guard duty. He spots StreakUp on this right-hand side. Sure, he'll look at Genetics and has a little giggle to himself, like, go on, you do it, Terra. Actually, funny enough, the whole of Sanguine ended up recalling, thinking there was going to be a full-on commit from Simplicity. Was that the right call?
Probably, because I don't know if they get the middle Phoenix. They could have certainly gotten the tier 2 middle tower, but is the tier 2 middle tower worth gambling the Titan for? Absolutely not. So I respect the call. You have only 2 members with Fire Giant out of Simplicity that you worry about. You're winning the team fights anyway. As long as you're regaining that Titan health, I don't think Sanguine are worried. You just can't make another silly mistake the same way Sanguine did around that Fire Giant.
Tier 2 in the mid lane will fall. They're dealing with fire minions still as they push on here onto Medic, who's stunned by Ronngyu and knocked up after. Now maniaKK can do a hell of a lot of pressure. He's already dead. But to the backside though, Faeles does get in there with a big fix your face opportunity, but he doesn't fix anything. It's still Sanguine on the Phoenix line, looking to pressure. Oxy gonna lead him in towards Genetics, who's rooted and now crippled in place. The damage onto the Genetics is almost enough to get the kill, but not quite. All the while, they're sieging this middle lane Phoenix. Deathpanter and StreakUp have to sit so far back, and they're having a hard time getting in there just to pressure them away.
Ronngyu not done. He's going to blink in, look for knockup onto StreakUp. He's going to get stunned in response, but using that second dash and relying on the heals. And Hindu, these heals is what's allowing Sanguine all the success. Can we look at the healing numbers?
The healing numbers at 22,000 there for a hell, 1,200 for Artio, and 3.6k for a cheeky little bit of Horus.
And even with all the anti-healing from Simplicity, it's still not enough, and that's simply because of the protections coming through from Ronngyu, and this is even without a Lotus Crown coming from either of those healers.
So start of the game, what happened? Sanguine go up 8-9 kills, I believe, in a row unanswered by Simplicity. They lurk around the whole map in Simplicity's jungle, looking for kills, looking for fights. They force fights at the Furies time and again. And then a commit of the Fire Giant is where it all went wrong for them and brought Simplicity back into the game. And now Simplicity are having lunch in the jungle, waiting for somebody to turn up and join the party.
A desperation tactic from
Is it desperation?
It is, because
Really?
this is telling me that Simplicity are not confident in a full 5-on-5 fight, so they want to just pick off 1, maybe 2 members that is on the blue buff. And this is a good idea of how they're positioning, because they're using their own sentry ward and they're hiding inside the blue buff. I'm not sure if Sanguine are aware of the positioning of Simplicity, but they know they're not on the minimap, so they're just going to wait for the Fire Giant to respawn.
Definitely if I'm Sanguine now, I'm like, I know what's going on. Like, why can't we see any of them on the map? They're the Gold Fury? Like, maybe they're doing gold? For some reason, though, Sanguine know what's up because they're not even clearing that wave there. It's Ronngyu the first one up. He's going to check the corner. The wards are there.
Why did they back? Why did they even press the B button? That animation of pressing B is so wide from your character. Yeah, they just gave themselves away.
And not only that, look at the middle lane as well. Remember, the middle lane Phoenix was taken down by Sanguine, and that's a fire minion wave pushing on up. Simplicity have to go back to defend, and when doing so, and they show that, Sanguine now get an opportunity to pressure the right-hand side and take down some more towers.
This time, after the failed Fire Giant attempt 10 minutes earlier, Sanguine having some patience, responding very well to the idea of using their fire minions. Sometimes it takes you to be at your lowest low to bounce back up.
There is a true moment of a caster curse coming into play here, because I did not think after Netrioid got a triple kill at his own Titan that Sanguine could turn this game around. But here we are. 30 minutes is about to ding, 21-10. The gold lead is only 3,000, but the way Sanguine are playing these fights, they're focusing the front line, and the back line just can't get involved from Simplicity at the moment. And even if they do, the sustain is causing too many problems for them.
Even when Faeles jumps in, he just can't do enough burst damage to counteract all the healing, even through his Brawler Speed Sake, even through Maniac going in with his Pestilence and the Cursed Ankh. It's just not enough. The patience from Sanguine.
See one, play one. That's what Sanguine's going to do. They trap themselves, and the blink from Panitom is good. In the sky, that was Maniac, and on landing, he takes a ton of damage, but Panther did get hold of Oxy at least to make it a 1-for-1. Keep an eye on Faeles trying to flank round the corner and cause a problem, but I don't think Sanguine really care about that Rob, and instead, they're going to continue to pressure the right-hand side.
Faeles was just a non-factor that fight. He didn't make any sort of commitment. That was a 5-on-4 for Sanguine the whole time, and now with a 1-for-1, still confident enough to push it.
Still no minions here as Ronngyu still tanking up on the front side. Sash from Panitom off the mark. Faeles did get to the back line though, and managed to fix someone's face. It was mainly Sheento's that's under pressure, but the peel from the bees and the sustain is keeping them alive for now. Panitom still goes down though, as Simplicity managed to hold. The right-hand Phoenix survives. The middle one's about to come up too. We're almost at an interestingly square situation.
We definitely are, and the turnaround potential from just those three members was still clearly evident. A good rotation this time from Faeles. He recognized that a little bit too far forward was Oxy trying to tank that right side Phoenix. I think the better call from Sanguine was to position themselves in the mid to guarantee the respawn middle Phoenix, but instead, they overcommitted. They lose one of their frontliners, forced to disengage. Faeles made it difficult to do so.
If you didn't know when you didn't watch the minor league during the first phase, it's always on a Tuesday. Sanguine, they play on the North American SML. Simplicity, they play for the EU SML, and I'll tell you what, it's showing exactly what the minor league teams have. A lot of consistency, but just areas where they get a little bit too aggressive at the wrong time. Speaking of over-aggression, Simplicity, you're doing the Fire Giant. Is this the right call?
I think so, because Panitom just respawned. He's coming from the base, a little bit less than half health. Sanguine, they don't have that much burst damage to steal it.
Obviously going to try and walk in there, but the wall from Genetics stops him. Simplicity get the Fire Giant. Remember, that's an enhanced one too. Sanguine not too happy about that. Sheento's trying to push Sanguine on, going, come on guys, we've got to punish them for taking a Fire Giant from under our noses. But Simplicity just jump away, back to the safety of their Phoenix line. Sanguine instead now have to manually walk up the middle lane if they want to, or just take the remnants of a Gold Fury on the left-hand side.
A well-calculated thought from Simplicity, recognizing Panitom was just respawning, had at least a 5-on-4 advantage. The heals were a factor earlier, but when you don't have the damage from your Naja, your backline can breathe a little bit easier. They can all play grouped up, and this is the point where now Simplicity has the control with Enhanced Fire Giant. That extra damage, the extra sustain that they get for themselves could counteract that of Sanguine.
Now, the last time we saw a fight from Simplicity on the aggression was down that middle lane that nearly won them the game. Very, very close to, in fact, but it wasn't quite to be. The question is, do Simplicity feel confident to try and look for the middle Phoenix again? Even the right one, that is weakened as well.
That's right, both of them are weakened. I don't expect them to go for the left side right away. What they could do is push it all the way down, but also have somebody split push in the mid to make it a little bit easier and have that 4-1 split. Sanguine are going to be truly tested on the defense now.
And the hard part on defense, you saw the issues they were running into. It's kind of Ronngyu that has to initiate with that blink fracture or look towards Panitom to find a sash. Oxy on this Artio, though, doesn't have a blink, so it's going to be very tricky to try and get in and do some setup. It's definitely a weakness to Sanguine's comp. However, their wave clear and their poke potential is definitely strong with the fact they've got a Hell, a Ring Toss, and Bees at any stage and any time they require it.
As good as Rongyu's engage is with the Blink Fracture, I think the Blink Earth and Fury from Genetics is that much better. If I'm Sanguine, I'm looking about ways to put Genetics into combat to prevent that Terra engagement. Maybe have Ronngyu be the one to shove him in combat.
It's a good point. Maybe just keep trying to throw that honey out if you're Netrioid towards that Terra. And speaking of simplicity, they rotated down the left-hand side, pressured a wave, and then changed their mind. They don't like the situation right now. And you know what? I don't mind this call, Tolly. They're going to clear out mid lane first. Just in case something goes wrong, it can't have Sanguine just barrel up mid lane and end the game.
And you can feel the tension because whoever wins this set is advancing through the bracket. It just depends on the next match to see who faces off against Team Dignitas or rival.
Definitely, and this is a best of 3 after all, but game 1 in best of 3s has always been a very telling point. It's a bigger opportunity to close out the set overall just by the numbers more than anything else. Minion wave on the left-hand side has pushed up once more. Panther with a hail of arrows just trying to get a bit of poke damage out. It won't do a whole lot to this Sanguine roster with the sustain they have. But the Brawlers beat sticks are online. The Pestilence is online. And the upgraded Cursed Dunk for both teams is available as Genetics will blink in, looking towards Ronngyu. Dashes, eats a ton of poke, gets Cursed Dunked himself, trying to survive as long as he can. But the Phoenix has caused the problems. Middle lane, meanwhile, though, it's Faeles and StreakUp trying to deal with Panitom, but they don't get the Phoenix yet. The minions, can you do it for us, boys? No! Still, Sanguine hold, and now maniaKK's gonna run, sashed by Panitom into the sky, not by the ultimate. Deathpanter, help him! Somebody help him! It's not gonna be! Now Sanguine can potentially just run it down mid, but they spotted Faeles.
Oh no, he's gonna blink away. I don't know if he's gonna get away from this Hindu, man.
want the Phoenix.
Sheento has a lot of mobility that he can help his teammates with. Oxy is gonna cover the option. This is gonna be a wild goose chase, and an important one though, because Faeles is buying so much time, because you know Sanguine have such a great opportunity to use this to push in a 5-on-3. Now, Faeles will ultimately die here, and it'll be at least a 5-on-4 on the defense.
The Fire Giant, though, up in a minute's time. Remember, Simplicity did get the last one. It was a very good defense from Sanguine, all in all, if you think about the fact that Simplicity split the difference of the two Phoenixes, and yet they both still alive.
So the way they opted for that was a 3-1-1, where StreakUp was in the middle between the mid side and the left-hand side, thinking about, okay, where do I kind of go here? With the Genetics engagement, it was an all-in commit by StreakUp and Faeles. However, Panitom's defense was just good enough to absorb the body shots, which isn't easy to do, seeing how he's not super tanky, only with the shifter shield and the wing blade for the health. It wasn't enough.
Let's see what happens for Sanguine now as they look to aggress onto the middle Phoenix. It is weak, and remember, but they don't have the damage dealer here yet. Netrioid arrives, and as soon as he does so, he makes quick work of that middle weakened Phoenix. Sanguine will fall back at this point, though. And towards the left-hand side, God Fury's up, as is a tier 2 tower over here. But the one worry I've got is that Fire Giant that's just about to spawn. And no surprise to see Sanguine fall back to recoup and maybe look for that enhanced Fire Giant themselves.
It's hard to call who's going to win this next fight, honestly, Hindu, because it's been so back and forth between these two teams. To see the score of 25-12, the way that Nemesis was defeated by Simplicity in that best-of-3 set, when they won 2-0, they only gave up 8 total deaths, already having more deaths in this first game than the whole best-of-3 that they had yesterday.
Only a 3,000 gold lead separating them as well, so items are pretty much on an even keel. 3,000 gold between 5 players isn't a whole ton. Mainly it'll just come down to wards. Pyromancer going to get dropped down by Sanguine. Simplicity not really in the area just yet, but they won't be too worried about a Pyromancer. Arguably, over the course of a game, it can cause problems, but it's more about the Fire Giant, and that's what Sanguine have started up here.
20 minutes ago, they attempted their very first Fire Giant. 20 minutes later, should be a lot cleaner this time around. Simplicity still interested, though, in making it more difficult.
Oxy on Zhong alongside Panitom, who's always looking for the sash, dashing from Ronngyu to set up some damage on maniaKK. The Curse as Donk is popped up maniaKK and he returns the favor. Sheento on the backside though has managed to be stuck in a 1v1 against Faeles, and Faeles is still chasing on Genetics too. They're trying to get to the hell, but now the hell has resustained back up. Sanguine escaped, Fire Giant still alive, but Simplicity's health bars are oh so much lower than that of Sanguine.
And the fire minions that are about to go down
good
that
point.
middle lane. Simplicity needs somebody to defend that. If maniaKK has his teleport, he needs to be the sole defender.
Totally, I don't like the fact Netrioid pulled that Fire Giant there. Wasn't the greatest thing in the world. maniaKK teleports straight back into the fray. Sash from Panitom as he and Oxy work on zone duty.
Wait.
Fire Giant is reset again.
Who is going to defend? Simplicity.
I think they've got time.
They use the teleport to try to contest this Fire Giant. Finally, somebody's going to back, but it's Deathpanter. That's a lot of DPS
And
missing.
a sash onto Genetics, puts him under pressure. Still Genetics alive. Meanwhile, Ronngyu took a ton of damage, but he surges back to the back line. Netrioid pushing on with Oxy leading the charge, and Simplicity just eating B after B after B. And I don't think it's gonna be. With how this is looking right now, Sanguine are back to the Fire Giant again, trying to lure Simplicity in once more.
Genetics is too low to really contest this Fire Giant. Deathpanter has returned, but honestly, this is the right call. Simplicity recognized they're not going to win this the longer this goes, so they just have to give this up and hope for the all-in defense around one of the Phoenixes.
Fire Giant is going to fall eventually then to Sanguine, as, like you said, Simplicity will fall back to the safety of their two remaining Phoenixes. Sanguine, meanwhile, doesn't look like they're going to base after this. They're going to march on down the right-hand side. I will say, Tolly, the one thing I've not seen so far this game is Ronngyu really use the ultimate at all. I think we just saw it like once or twice, sparingly. Obviously, he's not the biggest god for using his ultimate, but in situations like this, it can make an impact.
You definitely could all-in commit to the middle Phoenix if it was due to respawn soon, but I think that Sanguine are just going to try to get the right side Phoenix, maybe dive the back line onto StreakUp, but it's a Chronos that has rewind. His positioning, -8 seconds, could put him in a safe spot. You could go onto Deathpanter, but he's going to jump away. Better to save it for a little bit later, but with that middle Phoenix respawning, this could be a good opportunity to use to the skies.
Doesn't matter which team you feel is favorites into this as a blinking from Ronngyu happens. The updraft did connect. He kept Deathpanter busy, but Faeles went straight for Sheento. Sheento's Book of the Dead kept him alive for now, but Faeles claims the life before falling soon after. No, tell a lie. Faeles lives. The bees will finally get him. 4 members dead. There's only Oxy left alive, and I've got to give full credit there to the boy Faeles, who sacrificed his life for the kill. And can they end off this? Are you sure?
Yes. They can absolutely end. It is a long time, but still, a weakened middle Phoenix. It will be a lost Phoenix for Simplicity, but they don't really need it. There will be no minions, but there's plenty of time here to do, man. I wanted to talk about that engagement for a little bit. It was a battle of the supports. Even though we saw Ronngyu blink engage, nobody stopped Genetics from blink engage, and that Earth and Fury way more impactful than what a Fracture can do. A knockup is nice, but a 5-man Terra ultimate even better.
It's been a 40-minute game. It's only game 1. And this time, Simplicity will close out the game. They were behind for so much of that game by Sanguine. But at the end, their nerve held, the steel held for Simplicity. And they'll take down game 1. Just about.
Even though Simplicity won that game, they are not happy about that win. And if I'm Sanguine, I'm looking back at that 19-minute Fire Giant and saying to myself, like, okay, we were way too impatient that time around. I think that Simplicity in game 2, the picks and bans need to change.
Game 1 in the book. Simplicity take it. Desk, what do you have to say about that one then, guys?
I've got a lot to say about that one, Hindu. Good thing they gave me some time to go through and break this all down. What a barn burner that ends up coming up in Simplicity's favor. There's the Fire Giant throw, the end that doesn't end, then somehow Sanguine make it back into it, then they can't finish it either. Taco, well, what stood out for you here in this one?
Definitely a roller coaster of emotions for both fan bases, for sure. And for a while, it was hard to determine how long just this game would end up lasting because it felt like neither side really had the capability to kill the other outright.
Yeah.
And that's all that Sanguine or Simplicity are waiting on, was just that full team wipe. And for Simplicity, they were able to find it the moment that they took that engagement on their own right side Firebird. And Simplicity, kudos to them as well. That's a really bold shot call for them to try and take the fight in
two in a
front
row.
of the Phoenix.
It's 2 in a row, right? Because the first thing to do is they give up the Fire Giant, and that's a tough call to make. And then the second call is push out and defend that right side Phoenix, and they had to do it at that timing, and it caught them off guard. But Taco, talk about the Fire Giant steal here for me.
This is where it really all kind of just fell, or I don't want to say fell apart, because Sanguine definitely crawled their way back into this one. But for Sanguine, when they first started pulling this Fire Giant, it was just a little bit odd in my mind. Notice how the FG, that's only at 20% HP right there. That is not a lot of health to be working on. And so for Sanguine to look for this fight, once this objective is already so incredibly low, it just felt a little bit too forced. And that's what opened up the doorway for Faeles. Notice him right on that backside. He's kind of just waiting for a prime opportunity to come through with that Mystic Rush. And so as we play this through, you'll notice Faeles can tell. And Genetics coming in from behind as well, just popping the full-on Terra ult. That's what prompts, if we pause it here, and it just prompted Simplicity to want to take the full-on engagement. Well, I mean, we can run it back just a little bit there. It's right before the Fire Giant goes down, where when Genetics pops that Terra's Blessing and all the members from Sanguine are hit, Sanguine know that it's either a commitment to the fight or a commitment to the Fire Giant. Problem is, pause it right here, FG is already still stuck at that same 10%, 20% health threshold that Sanguine left it off with. What Sanguine needed to do from this position, Finch, was just full-on commit to the objective. I think that by the time Genetics is making his introduction into the Fire Giant pit, a lone Terra shouldn't be enough to really outburst the confirmation from Sheento or Netrioid. So this just felt like Sanguine getting hit by a kind of bizarre call from Simplicity to look for the fight there, but it was definitely a smart call to make.
Well, it really seemed to me that Sanguine wanted to bait that fight all along and didn't actually want the objective, because they DPS the Fire Giant so slowly. But eventually, they got too low to make the call to switch to the fight instead, and then the Fire Giant just ends up getting taken from them. So I think a bit of indecision ends up costing them, and I think that does have a ripple effect. If they get that FG and they're pushing from there, we don't even get to the fight where almost Simplicity are ending the game, or where they make that push outside of the right side Phoenix. I think that they could look back at that play, Taco, that you highlighted and go, man, we really might have lost our momentum there.
It definitely felt like too much hesitation, though, from Sanguine. It's never an easy call to make in the heat of the moment, and I get it. When you've got a Terra rushing in on top of you and dropping her ultimate, I can definitely understand why Sanguine felt as though that was the opportunity to fight. It was clear, like you mentioned, Finch, what they were after all along was getting that initial team fight. But if you want that team fight, leave the Fire Giant at 40%.
Yeah.
Don't take it all the way down to a killing threshold that then Faeles can take over.
And he jumped in and was able to grab it. So let's move now into the picks and bans for game number 2. A must-win for Sanguine if they want to keep LATAM's hopes alive. On the other side, Simplicity, if they win this, it's just like that. They're into the MSI bracket and out of the play-in stage, though they will still go to the finals to battle out up against Armada for seeding. But either way, let's move into the actual picks here. Jormungandr has been banned away. This is consistent. Sanguine banned this away in game 1 as well. Then the Freya ban. That's different. It was Erlang Shen that was banned last time, so I wonder if the Erlang might slip his way through.
Even if Erlang Shen makes it through, I find it hard to believe that Sanguine will opt for him over the Muzen. Netrioid was top of the player damage charts, despite the loss there for Sanguine in game 1. The constant slow application from the Honey, as well as the Bees, really began to, I think, interfere with Faeles on that Raven. Faeles had a lot of difficulty, I think, trying to figure out when was his time to strike, because there was just so much Muzen spam everywhere.
That made things really difficult, and this pick's got to be taken care of, man. It's so strong. He has so much damage at this point, and that's what enables this hell to get to the point where they're feeling comfortable, is that this Muzen comp damage is able to sort of carry them, and that's why Sanguine are prioritizing it yet again. I 100% understand where they're coming from, but you do wonder, the Erlang Shen now floating out there for them to grab. Do you think that without the hell, is the Muzen comp still going to open up as much space for them in the late game? Sanguine have to make some adjustments even with this AMC.
Well, keep in mind, it was Neja and Horus that Sanguine opted for as their second and third pick choices, but seeing Erlang Shen could definitely influence Sanguine to maybe want to prioritize Gauss with a little bit more interrupt, a little bit more slow capability, but it's the Chronos that I'm most concerned over. We didn't really talk too much about StreakUp in game number 1 there, Finch. I think a lot of the attention was just drawn towards both teams in general, but StreakUp probably one of the primary reasons why Simplicity was able to make that comeback in the first place.
I think so too. I'm right there with you. The Chronos, the later the game goes, obviously the stronger Chronos gets with his passive, and he provides some nice control. But I do want to put a bit of a spotlight on the Terra pick as well. That's what they're kind of replacing right now with the Erlang Shen. It was the Terra Chronos, and that was a big game-saving character for me too. That blink initiation for him for genetics on that Phoenix. That's the one that got that last fight started that they won so handily. If Sanguine are smart and take that away here now, I don't know if he'll be able to have as big of an impact on something else.
Certainly in the God pool for Ronngyu, that is one thing I'm sure of, but Sheento seems as though he's falling back to the Poseidon, so maybe control is going to be the focus here for Sanguine.
Wow.
Maybe try to utilize some of those Whirlpool cripples to interrupt the Erlang Shen from having that knockup capability, as well as the Kraken to kill Chronos off before he has a chance to get the rewind completed.
That's not a bad idea. That burst is a pretty good way to shut down the rewind value. Hard to go back in time if you're dead. The Horus being valued here again is very surprising. For what it's worth, Sanguine got a lot out of this pick in the early game. Just like you were saying, you don't love Horus if you're behind, but Sanguine never had to worry about it. The healing, the control, it was there in force. So no surprise Ronngyu going back to this strong pick, though it's a bit surprising just considering that it's not as valued in the current meta as it clearly is for Sanguine.
This is dangerous now, though, for Sanguine with Simplicity having locked in that Fafnir. It's not a guarantee that there's going to be a double hunter composition to follow suit, but if there's one thing I know, Fafnir certainly is a big help to Chronos and Erlang Shen alike.
It's
with
enough
that
already, yeah.
attack speed stim off of the Coerce, so the Sanguine certainly going to have to keep an eye out, I think, for those early to mid-game objectives. Maybe Simplicity looking to just take control of the map pressure early on through objective play.
This might be a good time for King Arthur or some other solo lane bans for Sanguine to think about here too, because that's not been prioritized yet, but their minds are right where yours is on this Fafnir and his synergy with some other hunters. So they take the Chernobog away. They don't want to let them have that Chronos Chernobog as the two hunters. Now remember, Freya already banned out. You don't have to worry about that. And the Hachiman, not that potent of a second option. Maybe Jing Wei, if they're too worried about hunters, they can try and grab that.
Chronos could be for Deathpanter, so Jing Wei, not a bad option to take a look at, but at the same time, there's not too many hunter options that fare super well against this Muzen Cobb, so Sanguine probably don't want to shy Simplicity entirely away from hunters. I think that Muzen Cobb and Poseidon are both great at dealing with double hunter compositions, in fact, because if Sheento opts for that Gem of Isolation early rush that we've grown so accustomed to seeing, then that could definitely be problematic for the likes of somebody like Ullr, even the Onher, some of the more popular mid-lane hunters that we've seen others try to play in that mid-lane.
I wonder about this Robin ban. Are they thinking that maybe Erlang Shen could go to maniaKK and solo lane? Because they already have the Fafnir. I mean, that's very likely going to genetics. And the Erlang Shen feels pretty jungle to me at this point, but they still banned away the Robin. Do you think there's some flex potential still?
There's still some flex potential. Erlang's not ideal for solo lane for a lot of solo laners nowadays, but he can definitely still pack a punch and hold the lane down decently well. And when you're dealing, or when you're trying to prioritize an attack speed based composition, like I am getting the message here from Simplicity on, then I think it's fair to want to remove the likes of Chernobog or Robin even, just on the case that you don't want to have to worry about a double warrior frontline running at you.
Facilitating that backline. Hachiman makes sense. There's not a lot of other strong hunters that are still available. Though, to be honest, I'm a bit surprised Xbalanque fell off as hard as he did. I do think there's still some value there. But Hachiman comes in for Simplicity. Still gives you a good deal of safety. The CC immunity on the ult, probably a big deal when you're up against potential control here from Sanguine, so they snatch that one up.
Serket, though, now being hovered, starting to believe that that could be Panitom's god of choice here. We did see Ronngyu on the Horus in Game 1, so this is Sanguine maybe trying to throw Simplicity off their trail, but Simplicity are going to get a chance to see what Sanguine have up their sleeve here. And it's not that I wasn't a fan of the Artio for Oxy. I think that the Artio was definitely a good take for him, but I would like to see Oxy possibly on a more aggressive type of solo laner. Maybe something that maniaKK can't just sustain through or just stalemate the lane with. I want to see Oxy get a little aggro here.
I see what you're saying. I'm just too worried about him in that matchup. I think going the kind of safer Guardian that can mitigate him some was probably the best call. The only problem is he doesn't know the solo lane matchup this time, so it's so much harder for him to know the best pick to take over into that matchup against maniaKK as Naja comes through. With Horus already on the table, this very likely feels like it's for Panitom, and then the Terra to pick up for Sanguine. So I imagine then they're going to throw this for Oxy over there in the solo lane. Terra can work there, but it can be a little tougher.
It's not awful, though, when you factor in that Simplicity's current solo lane option is looking like either Erlang or a last pick here. And if I'm maniaKK, he's probably just looking for something that's either going to funnel into this attack speed composition that Simplicity have already heavily prioritized, or just look to be a heavy frontlining member. But Amaterasu could be the perfect puzzle piece to fit in.
Very, very scary if this Amaterasu gets locked in. It absolutely does. The movement speed makes this composition frightening. The dazzling offensive is great initiation that's so hard to peel. You would need something that physically blocks her, which maybe Terra can do in the wall, but it's so difficult. This is a great last pick here for maniaKK, and it's one that he loves to play and synergize with this comp real well.
Just hoping that Sanguine hasn't lost all the wind in their sails after that Game 1 outcome, because keep in mind, they were largely in control for the first 15 to 20 minutes of it. Things really only fall or crumbling a little bit after that initial Fire Giant steal from Simplicity. And now in Game 2, it looks as though Simplicity, they're looking to make a statement in the early game.
I think so too, but I feel like there's going to be a lot on the shoulders of Sheento here on this Poseidon to get some value out of that Whirlpool. That cripple field against this composition could be pretty strong. He's just going to make sure that it's in the right place at the right time.
It all really just depends. I think placement is going to come down. Positioning, I mean, those are two things that are kind of guarantees for good competitive SMITE here. But Horus is probably the biggest question mark in my mind.
Sure.
Because if Sanguine aren't as clear out in front as what we saw in Game 1, then I think that the Horus could definitely look to struggle here up against the likes of Erlang and Amaterasu.
That's a great point. Ronngyu last game had a good start. Can he repeat that here? Sanguine up against Simplicity. Let's go for Game 2.
Well, we'll get to find out if that is the case and if that is something they can do here. Quick pause at the beginning of the game. No real surprise there.
Trying to go for this late game idea from the last pick, maniaKK. I love the Amaterasu selection this time, switching it up a little bit. Really going to abuse that solo lane.
And talking about that a little bit more, they saved maniaKK's pick for the last pick. It's so smart from Simplicity. Yes. They know Sanguine's got a substitute in the solo lane here in Oxy. So what do? They let them pick their composition and go, what will be the best matchup situation? Amaterasu, maybe not early game pressure, but it's definitely something that's going to play into the comp as the game goes on.
It's about the divine presence aura, being able to switch to that mobility, 25% extra movement speed at the max rank with a little bit of cooldown reduction. That 9 seconds floats easily down to 7, but it's also more about the illuminating strike passive to get that 10% extra damage. And on a Gold Fury, on the Fire Giant, that objective control with also a Hachiman, Heavenly Banner, Genetics, Fafnir, Coerce, is just going to allow Simplicity to get such an advantage.
It's definitely a zoom comp that Simplicity has presented here to us today, especially, like you said, with the Coerce is going to buff any single one of the other characters that Simplicity have drafted to give them a ton of damage output. And not only is it single target Coerce, but if you go into Dragon form, well, the whole team can get it.
The AoE damage is going to be real from Simplicity. You can't even forget about StreakUp coming in with a time stop. A little bit of pressure from Sanguine in the dual lane. I'm surprised that they rotated there, considering Netrioid on the Muzen has all day.
Did it again? No way! Did it again!
That's
Panitom
disgusting.
Right now, Panitom's going to get first blood in mid is what is about to happen after picking up the red buff. This is just a rinse repeat, but replace Ullr and Hell in the mid lane with Hachiman versus Poseidon instead.
And then also replace the Ravana for Faeles with the Erlang Shen, right?
True,
but this time around, I doubt it'll be a repeat to early kills.
That's
we'll
fair.
see. Ronngyu last time was making a rotation after this wave.
But you know, that's 2 times now Genetics has done that, but what he did was each time they saw Ronngyu on the left-hand side, and the moment they see Ronngyu on that left-hand side, Genetics commit knows that Panitom's going to be left on his own at that speed buff, because you can't really have Sheento stick around there to try and help him out, because he's got to get to that mid lane to get the farm.
And even stealing away these back camps, Genetics was also using the blink at level 1 the same way he did in the last game.
I don't know what it is about UK support players, but they all seem to have this invade abuse early game strategy. Rafa does it, Suntouch used to do it back in the day as well. Like, There are always UK kids who play support that do that, and I don't know why it is. We just like being scum. I think that's all it is.
I was wondering who else besides Genetics and Raffer you were about to mention.
Suntouch was always like back as hogs on cooldown, right? Just walk on in.
To be fair, when Suntouch used to play, everyone did anything hog invade back then.
It was there and it wasn't, but he was definitely a forefront. Don't take that away from him. Don't take his steals away, okay?
All right, we'll keep Suntouch in
We'll
mind
see,
for sure.
though.
But
last time Simplicity did that, they did win the game as well.
yes.
So that could mean they win the game here. Blink from Ronngyu onto StreakUp. That'll get the beads, but a very good stun from StreakUp will at least get some damage in return there. And StreakUp well aware of it this time. Last time he got caught semi out of the loop on the gank, but he's well aware that Ronngyu wants to keep doing that. Genetics, meanwhile, he wants his jungle again.
I think they're sniffing it out, though. Sheento is right around here. Is he actually going to be able to steal it? They have the timer for it.
Stole that.
Ah, he stole the big one. But now he doesn't have the cooldown
Who needs
to
it?
steal the speed. If he steals it with the... Okay.
I was going to say disarm, baby. Still level 2, though, so Genetics doing this is trying to delay some of Sanguine's jungle and experience gain, but he has put himself at a disadvantage by doing so. Underhanded tactics didn't connect. The hammer did, however, and that will get the beads out of Sheento, as the banner did drop down onto him. I don't think he needed to beads there, do you think? But
Better
it's
safe than sorry,
right?
Way better safe than sorry, because now if he doesn't beads, you're eating at least 2 basic attacks, and as Deathpanter is hitting you, he's moving forward, and he's positioning himself to maybe land that double stun.
That's fair, that's fair. We'll see what happens then. Purple buff on the left-hand side invaded by Sanguine there, as once again Simplicity to get the second blue buff on this right-hand side. That's definitely going to cause some problems for Oxy on this Terra this game. Blue is something that he definitely wants for the extra cooldown and mana regen, but Sheento has no beads this time. The hammer will miss. It was a good juke, and he sits in a whirlpool as long as he can. Faeles didn't find the knock-up he was after from the turtle form, and Sheento will slip the net for now.
They needed at least 1 CC to land on Sheento to give Deathpanter the room and freedom to land some of those basics. A slight missed opportunity, but at least Simplicity can walk away cleanly with this back camp invade.
And Genetics is really, like, sitting on this right-hand side between these back harpies, the blue and the speed, as often as possible. Ronngyu turns up to that side now, leaving Netrioid to get a bit more free form on this left-hand side on the AMC. Great performance from him in game 1. I expect to see another one this time round.
I definitely agree with you. But so far, though, with the aggression from Simplicity, 3-way splitting those mid-waves is going to slowly hurt out Deathpanter, whereas Sheento is 2-way splitting for the most part. So Poseidon that gets ahead this early on to finish off his Gem of Isolation, his potentially Spear of Magas, is going to allow that mid-game control that he needs.
Well, the start of this one is definitely a little bit slower, a little bit less out there, as Sanguine haven't got a huge lead in terms of kills so far in this. Instead, it's Simplicity that have consistently stripped away a couple of buffs in the jungle that have put the pressure on. And Genetics just warming up that hammer throw time and again, not scared to throw it out and see if he can cause some problems for this Sanguine roster.
Uh-oh, now it's Ronngyu making the blink engage onto Genetics, but the Kraken just slightly late.
Now what that was there was Ronngyu went for the shred after the fracture. He blink and shreds, and then you get an additional attack that you can shred protections. By doing that, it was a small window where he didn't go for the updraft for the knock-up to set up that whirlpool. And Sheento was just a little bit too late to the party to find the Kraken because of it.
Third consecutive back camp invade. I think Simplicity are really focusing on that solo lane side. I think that it was actually Sanguine that mentioned that they need to play around the right side of the map, knowing that they were the ones with the substitute in that solo lane. And so far, Oxy hasn't completely fed in the laning phase.
His job is to hold, right?
Yes, which is why he played the Artio in that first game, trying to win that matchup up against King Arthur. This time around, picking the Terra, he didn't know what maniaK's pick was quite yet when he selected that god, so he's going for a safe team-fighting god that recognized what Genetics was able to do with it, and knowing that he was already the Fafnir, it wasn't an idea to strip that one away, but it was more to like, all right, let us be the ones with the Terra blink engage.
I do think Ronngyu, what he said though during the interview was, he said they were going to try and defend the right lane and focus the right lane, but I think he may have been saying that to make people think he was going to do that because they didn't pay any attention in game 1. Beats down on Sheento in mid, Faeles gets the ultimate off, and Panitom does survive just about. He had to use the Windfire Wheels defensively, but more importantly, that was 2 sets of beads consumed by Sanguine. And Genetics, and maniaKK are back on the right-hand side, stealing Harpies, but Panther just got caught a little bit too far forward and punished for it. Sheento will survive after the pin from Faeles, as Genetics was already on an adventure. Sanguine punished the over-aggressive Simplicity.
But they're not done yet. Genetics jumping on in. Keep in mind, Sheento now still with a lot of damage, finishing off that Mage's Blessing evolution. And this is an idea that Simplicity are using, is by constantly putting pressure on the back camps 4 consecutive times in a row, but now ultimately paying the price because they're just too obvious at this point.
And we see that because Panitom's only level 6, whereas look at Genetics, he's only just dinged level 5. And I think some of the fighting we saw in mid lane there, if Genetics was level 5 already, I think they probably would have come out ahead in terms of a couple of kills. So that, you know, loss of experience for Panitom has paid off in a weird way against them because of the fact that Simplicity weren't at the same level.
Even with Genetics only being level 4 at the time, I still think it was the right idea because at the time, Sheento didn't have his ultimate during that engagement, but Deathpanter was just too far forward for too long. Once that cooldown was back up, he was a sitting duck, didn't respect that cooldown timer eventually.
Hunters in the duo lane, no one really paid too much attention outside of the very starting gank we saw from Ronngyu in the first couple of minutes. And that's actually given StreakUp just a small hair of a lead in this lane in terms of experience. Hasn't been back to base for a moment or two. He's got his boots online, but working towards that Pythags piece that we've seen so much of this year.
It's all about, like, the kids that are at home being left alone, and your mom is calling to check up on you every now and then. And that's what Ronngyu is doing. He's calling Netrioid. It's like, hey, you're good, all right? You didn't burn the house down? All right, cool, I can leave again, you know?
It's a fake, because really, when he turns up and goes, hey, you're good, he's really just taxing your lane. That's all he's there for more than anything else. The phone call actually costs money, is kind of what it's all about there. Netrioid goes back to the left-hand side now, Hives down. Oracles are spawning, and Panitom and Ronngyu are on the scene, as is Genetics. Faeles rotating in as well. We may see a bit of a 2-on-2 skirmish here, as the mid laners are both poised and in position to join if required as well. Just keeping an eye on those. Ring toss definitely causes problems. It's a 1-for-1 trade, but Panitom's not done just yet. He'll sash in, eats a hammer from Genetics, and with Ronngyu turning up with the surge after the fact to make sure that Panitom's okay, that's business as usual for everybody. Back to our own sides of the map.
If Panitom engages and I'm Simplicity, I always have to do a little bit of a check factor. I'm like, all right, where is Sheento? Because I'm more worried about the Kraken when I land than anything else. And Panitom didn't have Sheento there. There was no realistic continuation from that point on. Simplicity feeling very confident, granting themselves at least one of those oracles.
Right-hand side looks like the oracles, sorry, the right-hand harpies, I should say, went to Sanguine there. No real stoppage from Simplicity. They had to play a bit further back as they didn't have Faeles, and Sanguine with 3 members strong around that camp. Panitom, though, has returned to his own part of the jungle and trying to make sure those right harpies go down. As the red buffs are spawning, no luck from either team just yet. It's all about the left harpies first of all.
Not going to be able to get that one is Genetics. And something Simplicity are doing very well this game, even though Sanguine just got those left mid camps, is the neutral objective control. The Totem of Coups, 5 already going the way of maniaKK. Last game, he was also winning that category, which is what allows Simplicity to keep the gold relatively even, despite giving up those 2 early deaths. Stripping away multiple back camps this game as well. Simplicity, despite giving up first blood again, have about a comfortable lead.
Definitely, and like we said, you know, Oxy's holding this lane in the solo side, not getting any help whatsoever. They're happy, well, to an extent, Sanguine are just accepting the loss of the blue buff on the right side and the coups, but it is giving a marginal lead to Simplicity, who are looking at a Pyromancer here, as maniaKK will pull it. Genetics transforms, looking to burst this down quickly, and with a coercive is even required. They'll burst it down before Sanguine can answer. But Sanguine now trying to answer their own with a Gold Fury attack.
So Ray Sheento with the Kraken available, sitting at level 10 with Spear of Magus, but not really committing to it with just StreakUp identified. Even though they did see StreakUp, you don't know exactly how many Simplicity members are on that right side of the map. Even though we saw exactly 4 members there with the Fafnir ultimate, you just got to play it safe.
Now then, the question is when does Simplicity look for an opportunity for the Gold Fury? Because they seem to be the aggressors. I don't expect it to happen soon, though. They'll play around Genetics' ultimate is what I'm expecting here. That Dragon form definitely helps out with that. Faeles, though, is on this left-hand side here, trying to wrap around, potentially, Netrioid, who's in this lane farming. But as he steps in a ward around the Gold Fury pit, Sanguine will be aware as Rongyu's busy trying to use the sentry to clear out. He's actually going to engage on Faeles. I don't think Panitom was ready for that either. Ooh. And if Panitom was ready for it, I think Faeles could have been a bit more hurt. But talking about hurt, it's Netrioid under pressure from a StreakUp.
Ronngyu going in with the knockup as well. Panitom with the ultimate waiting. It doesn't even need it. Genetics a little bit too far away from the action to save his Hunter's life. A nice clean pick out of Sanguine, but is that enough to get the objective? I'm just not sure.
You know, Tony, I actually like that play from StreakUp in one sense because he saw the action happening in the jungle, so he knew no one was paying attention. The problem is that, well, StreakUp just bit off more than he could shoot. Netrioid bought enough time for his team to turn up.
He had both relics available still when he died. He did use the rewind. It just wasn't enough to win the 1v1, and it never really is a 1v1, especially with the action that close to the lane. StreakUp feeling himself a little bit too much after that first game.
Now with that, Sanguine just give themselves an extra kill. It's not going to amount to too much. They did steal away a purple buff, and the red buff was safely secured by Simplicity already, so it won't be an opportunity for further progress on that side. Meanwhile, maniaKK is having fun with his second blue buff. His first one is definitely safe on the backside if he needs it, but he likes to one further forward, mainly on Oxy's side of the map.
And he's about to get his 8th totem of Q. Sanguine are just not able to get any of them, and that's because of the matchup of the gods, not necessarily the players.
Panitom sashing mid lane into a windfire wheel. Sheento trying to have Matt, has to crack him. Gets the beads off though to make sure he got the ult in place, but I don't think that was necessarily that worthwhile. Genetics for a mid laner? Maybe they can turn it here though. That was a huge ton of damage from that sash from Panitom, way more than expected.
That cripple as well to seal the deal. Fail's gonna drop, making it at least a 2-for-1. Now Sheento's life becomes a little bit more worth as Sanguine now looking for more action in mid.
Oxy now rotating towards this middle area here as Ronngyu and Netrioid barreled towards this left-hand side of the map. Not sure if they're looking for a pick on Deathpanter, which might be the call actually, or the Gold Fury attempt, knowing they've got a man advantage.
Without cracking, it becomes a little discouraging, I think, for Sanguine to try to go for it, but not disencouraging to go for more picks.
Got the beads out of Deathpanter there as Ronngyu did blink in and land the fracture. Now Sanguine positioned around the Gold Fury pit, but maniaKK is here alongside 3 other members of Simplicity. Sanguine will fall back. All the while though, Panitom did at least manage to get aggressive in the enemy jungle and get a bit of farm for himself out of Simplicity's heart of the map.
Ronngyu gonna be A-okay after dashing away safely there, as Sanguine not wanting to flirt with danger on that Gold Fury, knowing that Panitom was on the right side of the map looking for all these invades, abusing maniaKK's absence.
Totally look, Genetics just transformed into a dragon and jumped straight on Ronngyu, was trying to get those mid-harpies. Faeles will get credit for the kill, and still, all the members of Simplicity grouped up here, gonna pull the Gold Fury.
They should be able to get it, but Kraken is available. Sheento is gonna go from the top-hand side if he wants to try to contest it, but all the meanwhile, it was just too quick. Simplicity do secure it, but Sanguine are looking for at least a pick.
And Faeles going to use the ultimate on Netrioid, who uses the Aegis nicely timed there. maniaKK, though, going to get aggressive against Sheento and get another Aegis for his pleasure and pressure there on that left-hand side. Gold Fury the way of Simplicity, but a tier 1 tower for Sanguine in the right-hand side, thanks to the work out of Panitom.
Yes, he was there the whole time because he wanted to abuse maniaKK's absence. Before the pick happened, he was stripping away the backcams, the blue buff, and then once he realized, oh, we just lost Ronngyu to a 5-man rotation, it would have been too late for him to make that rotation anyway. He makes the guaranteed play of getting the 500 gold instead.
Still doesn't worry me too much about maniaKK in the solo lane, just because he's playing the Amaterasu here, and Ama has the ability to be so mobile and escape danger under pressure, so it's not a problem for him to be this pushed up towards the tier 1 tower on the right.
Especially when you're level 15 with a 2-level advantage, 30% cooldown reduction, you're able to spam your 1 every 6 seconds at this point with that cooldown reduction, and that 25% mobility is going to be felt. So once Simplicity are seeing whoever from Sanguine is out of position, even if they don't kill them right off the bat, they're going to run you down.
Keep an eye on the builds now as we approach the 16-minute mark here. You can see the Bloodforge was first item from Deathpanter here. Makes a lot of sense, the fact that you're not going to have Devourer's Gauntlet stacking up, is it effectively in the mid lane? So maybe go for that upfront damage earlier. It is a more cost effective, but much more expensive. Hold that for though, Kraken in mid, gets the Aegis out of Deathpanter as the red buff was invaded. Sheento uses bees to keep the slows at bay. Oxy does get into the fray and makes a difference to keep his mid laner alive. Panitom got the Windfire wheels off onto Deathpanter and takes his life. That was a fight forced by Simplicity, but it's Sanguine that got the first kill, and you know what, it could just be a bit more.
Well, maniaKK able to dash away just barely. Sanguine gonna be credited with a tier 1 middle tower and a little bit more. I like the idea that Simplicity had, because earlier, before that pick attempt, maniaKK forced the Aegis from Sheento, and that was the idea behind going for round 2. The only problem this time for Simplicity was the passive mobility from Poseidon, and also using that second ability, Steroid, was making Sheento too fast, even through the Amaterasu Steroid.
And with the tier 1 tower down going in the mid lane, alongside Deathpanter and the Pyromancer, Sanguine now have their first lead in game 2 for the moment. This is still balanced on a knife edge for me, this game, Tony.
Yeah. It really is. It's hard to say like who has the better late game, because it's going to come down to objective control still, whoever can secure the Fire Giants safely. But I think the repositioning is going to allow Simplicity a slight edge from maniaKK, right? Having already 30%. I think that's going to be a Genji's Guard to cap off his CDR, so he's going to be an absolute nightmare. Since he was level 12 first, he was the one that opted for a Frenzy.
And that's why I'm keeping an eye on Panitom this game as well. You mentioned the mobility that Simplicity you're going to have in the later stages. Well, if you're playing the likes of a Najjar, those sashes are going to be absolutely crucial. If you can find the targets in the amount of mobility they're going to have to move around, if you can find them, it can cause a lot of problems. Sanguine grouped up quite heavily towards this middle area. There's no tier 1 tower standing for them, but they're hunting for a red buff, or maybe even a pick on StreakUp, who's not noticed. He did walk around the corner in time, though, and get his rewind off, and look to turn it around again.
Still has the beads and Aegis if he needs to use it. Still confident to take that 1v1, knowing that Faeles sees everyone else from Sanguine, so a safe StreakUp.
Oh, Genetic's going to blink away from the danger he was worried about there. Panitom more interested in the red buff, however. Taking a bit of time to get that red buff as it is forcibly reset once more. And meanwhile, the right-hand side, I'm just keeping an eye on what Sheento was up to. It looks like he's going to try and get some farm up there, but there's nothing really available. Everyone's still dancing on the left-hand side.
Keep in mind, Netrioid's Aegis was forced from StreakUp once he did land that time stop, and that's why Simplicity are trying to corner him like an animal in a cage. StreakUp able to push out that wave. He's going to try to defend this next one, but Fury not going to respawn.
Panitom with the blink into the sash, gets the beads out of StreakUp. Panitom waits on the Windfire wheels, but he just can't find the mark. Genetics can't find it either with the hammer, and neither can Oxy with the walls. It's all about the jukes in game 2 in this one.
That's what it's all about, honestly, being able to confuse your opponents. It's not easy to land those abilities between the Najjar Sash, between Genetics, Hammerstone, but either way, a clean disengage from both members, walking away, only having to use the beads to StreakUp.
Is that a gem of isolation coming out from Genetics here? It is.
I'd say
just finished
so.
it off as well.
It synergizes a little bit with the coerce. You use the coerce on your members, and you're going to actually apply that slow.
Sure, but that's nerfed now as well. This is a nerf gem of isolation. It only lasts 1 second when you apply, right? But I guess it's the whole team getting it.
Still good.
I mean, I'm just as a support, it's kind of awkward. You're buying it for your team, but I guess that's what a support's supposed to do.
You're getting a little bit of health, so you still can justify it being a little more tanky.
Well, Primal Fury has been pulled by Sanguine here, and it keeps getting reset. We saw this in game 1 from Sanguine. It was definitely a tale of they wanted to fight when they did this, but against the team that Simplicity you have on offer here, it might not be as easy as all that. Meanwhile, we'll just keep an eye on mid lane as Faeles has pressured that minion wave. Netrioid has to go in to defend the wave with the honey and use the bees to allow him to clear it out as the Fury's reset again and pulled once more by Sanguine.
But what's the idea here for Sanguine? It's like, where are they actually going to commit to? Because they're not going to full-on commit. Even though they do have the Kraken, they know Simplicity are going to be tempted to go on in. This time, maniaKK is not going for the bait.
Sanguine still trying to force an ultimate out of Simplicity or a relic or anything. Knock up onto maniaKK, does connect. The walls from Oxy there didn't really find a home. Primal Fury getting low. Sheento on a ward round the back. They know exactly where he is. Fury reset again, still dancing at 20% health here, but getting very low. Jump in towards the tail end, and all hell breaks loose maniaK's trying to hit as many people with their ultimate as possible, but Netrioid and Sheento have already taken 2 lives down. Now they're on the run to escape, and you know what? By jolly, Sanguine did it. They get the Fury and 2 kills.
Very easy as well. They didn't even need to invest a Kraken to confirm the objective. They used it for the engage after the fact. Simplicity, they had a ward behind the Gold Fury. They knew where Sheento was, but still was hesitant about how to approach the question mark that Sanguine was proposing. They needed to commit there. Sheento was a little bit too far forward from the action.
That really was something that me and Tom have spoken about before. After me have always discussed the fact of pulling the fire alarm to see how quickly the police respond, the first responders get there, right?
Okay.
So Sanguine just kept pulling the Gold Fury over and over again, Primal Fury I should say, and they wanted to check how long it took for Simplicity to react. And Simplicity took their time about reacting, and eventually Sanguine went, okay, you're really not going to commit? Well, it's low enough for us to burst, and that's what happened.
Just a bunch of juvenile high school kids breaking into their old junior high school.
Yeah, I guess. I didn't mean to say me and F-Dot were juveniles at high school. That wouldn't be us. Not a chance,
Clearly
man.
not.
We're professional commentators of the SMITE Esports League. Pyromancer pulled by Sanguine here, and maniaKK is here and around with presence. Genetic's going to join in too. Pyro taking its sweet time to go down. Obviously, they don't have Netrioid with that AMC nearby or Panitom there, so they didn't want to commit too heavily with just 3 of them. So in the end, Pyro has to wait for now.
If the next time Sanguine pulled these objectives, maniaKK just needs to all-in commit. He has the Oni's Hunter's Guard. You want to be closer to them to get that 9% damage reduction, but still, caught sleeping is Simplicity.
Well, I say this, but I mean, Sanguine have taken 2 objectives on front of Simplicity. Simplicity haven't panicked too much just yet. If you look at what happened in Game 1, Simplicity were very patient there around that first Fire Giant, and it paid off for them. As long as they don't lose a Fire Giant the same way, it should be okay.
But I'm expecting Sanguine to hold off from any Fire Giant attempts until it's guaranteed after losing that first one 19 minutes in.
Deathpanter just used his escape in the mid lane, was forced to ult after the Sash Connect from Panitom 2. That's a huge win for Sanguine at this moment in time. Ronngyu gonna blink, but there's 3 members of Simplicity in the jungle too. Panitom can't find the ring tosses. maniaKK forced to ult defensively. It's not too doom and gloom in the grand scheme of things for either side.
Well, that dazzling offensive is a much shorter cooldown than the blink from Ronngyu with 30% cooldown reduction. I think that it might be good enough, though, to get this tier 2 tower. Simplicity need to hold on.
Ronngyu trying to tank it up now. Oxy, but on the backside, the Kraken and the Windfire wheels are off the mark. Mistimed, and maniaKK's still alive. Frenzy pop by Genetics. That's go time for Simplicity, maybe. But the call seems to be fall back. Sanguine still marching on. Ronngyu still perfectly healthy on the front side. Gonna now backdoor this tier 2 tower with the whole Sanguine team happy with the result of the fight.
Sanguine switching up their composition between games 1 and 2, between going a lot of AoE heals versus a lot of AoE damage. Even though Sheento's Kraken was ill-timed, it was still the AoE damage from everyone else that got Simplicity that low to discourage them from chasing.
I'm almost a bit surprised as well by the fact that Sanguine, both ultimates, the Windfire Wheels and the Kraken, were aimed at the frontline tanking maniaKK. Is maniaKK the big person to focus on here?
No, absolutely not, because even if you do get him down, he's still going to be tanky with that Oni's Hunter's Guard, but he has healing from that aura once he switches, and it's a very short cooldown.
Oxy under pressure, the super sub under pressure, and a hell of a lot at that. StreakUp ripped half his health bar away, and now maniaKK round the back might be able to find the kill. Ronngyu gonna use the ultimate to try and make something happen, and the Kraken hits onto Faeles, but he's got a sustain coming. His ult was there, but it won't be there in time. The swarm from Netrioid did a lot of damage, but maniaKK did more to Ronngyu. Panitom though has got Deathpanter after the fact, and Netrioid takes down maniaKK with a double kill. It's StreakUp versus the LATAM squad, and Netrioid will get his 2nd triple kill of this set, and the Phoenix is under threat.
Sanguine with a huge advantage now. This may the Phoenix destined to go down. Don't expect them to go for the end here.
Are you sure?
I am 99.5% sure they're not going to go for the end here, but you know what? Crazier things have happened.
Sash on Genetics into a wind, fire, wheels, whirlpool on the ground, not even needed.
Wait, Maybe now they go for the end.
Is that it? Is that going to be a game 3, 25 minutes in? Sanguine, don't do a simplicity here. Don't throw this away. They've got the minions as Faeles blinks in. Gets the arm off. 3-man knock-up. Triple kill potentially for Faeles on the cards, but he can't find it in time. Panitom will get the nice bit of crit to the rescue.
All right, at least defending the Titan, making it a 1-for-1. Sheento trying to pull a sneaky play, getting the Aegis out of Deathpanter. I like that idea. Very bold to do that with this little help.
Well, there's more problems because Maniac's got mobility with Amaterasu, so Panther and him may be able to give chase. Still, Sheento has to keep backpedaling as fast as his little trident legs can take him. But he's still got support there. At the end of the day, Simplicity may just have to accept a Fury as a consolation prize.
If anyone can outrun Maniac, it's got to be Sheento. With the Shaman's Ring on the Poseidon, you should be fine.
Ronngyu trying to defend the Fury, put himself in an awkward spot, but he knew he had Panitom nearby. Ring toss out just to give them some mobility, and that will be pressure subsided from Sanguine there. Simplicity get the Oni Fury. It's quite important Oni Fury at this moment in time, especially with them just losing the middle Phoenix here.
Very important as well, yes. This allows Simplicity now more breathing room potentially to defend the middle Phoenix. Sanguine are going to have to defend their side lanes for this one Oni Fury wave, but Fire Giant is up. Sanguine, they didn't opt for the Fire Giant earlier after that important 4 kills. They instead got the guaranteed Phoenix, and because of the kill onto Genetics, they were a little bit encouraged. It's like, hey, we can maybe end here, but a great defense from Faeles, being able to blink and ultimate, win out in a one-on-one.
Panitom blinks, Panitom misses his ultimate. Panitom now taking a trade with Faeles, who ults him back. Faeles gonna get Eater, Kraken, or should I say Rubber Ducky. Maniac gonna ult onto 2 frontline targets, and it's Oxy on the front side that's taking the brunt of the damage. He'll survive as long as his legs can hold, but not long enough. Genetics leaps on in, stuns Ronngyu, who's still under pressure. Panitom, the major focus from Simplicity here, but they don't have the damage to catch him just yet. Good knockup from Ronngyu, good slow too. Simplicity though still marching on, but here comes the beat!
On the backside, he gets one onto Genetics, looking for a little bit more. Maniac is going to suffer the same exact fate now. StreakUp with the rewind. He could be the 3rd victim.
Oh, but he'll at least go 1-for-1. Sheento takes his life. Deathpanter, the last man alive on Simplicity for the next 11 seconds. Faeles will be back up, and Faeles does have his blink available, but his ult is definitely on cooldown. Oh, Panther thought they were going for the FG. They're going for the M, Panther. It's all on Faeles now. Fire minion wave coming in. Luckily, a minion wave spawned at the same time, but Sheento's having none of it. We're not going to make the mistake again. We're going to try and close out the game. Or are they? Or are they? Panther takes down Panitom. Panther takes down Netrioid. And 2 games in a row. Sanguine bail at the Titan. Man!
What was Panitom doing there? He was going for the kill instead of actually going for the Titan. This is not how you close out games, Hindu man. Sanguine are letting their lead play into their own mentality in a very negative manner.
I really feel that play from Sanguine was a split call. Sheento's on the Titan, the other 2 are not. They're clearing minions and they're walking down the lane. They all have to commit or they all have to disengage. You can't do both.
No, you definitely can. Also, good credit to Faeles. He finds the route onto Sheento, not allowing him to engage inside the Titan room, stalls him out a little bit further. The delayed back, actually, from Deathpanter probably helped him out just a smidge, because if Sanguine saw both of them right away, maybe they don't go for that. But because they only saw Faeles at the time, that's why they went in.
Well, that's what Simplicity needed. They needed to hold on, and now the middle Phoenix has respawned. That will allow the Titan to do a bit of regeneration. That's quite important at this stage. Simplicity, though, with all 5 members now back alive once more. They're on a Pyromancer. Ronngyu and Oxy try to do their best to dissuade them from doing so, but it will come for naught for the time being. It's all about the Fire Giant dance now, Toli, and guess what? It's about to be enhanced.
If I'm Simplicity, I'm going to allow Sanguine to start this objective because they just have not been clean about securing any calls this second game. The first game, they were doing such a good job.
Panther, be careful. There's a sash coming. Panitom over the wall with the blink sash into the Windfire wheels. The Aegis was available. The beads were not, and Panther is down, as is the tier 2 tower on the right-hand side. Sanguine do not pressure on, however. They fall back into the jungle towards the Fire Giant. Simplicity, though, are pushing down the mid lane. StreakUp is on an adventure to get as many towers as possible.
Only a tier 1 in the mid. You could still breathe easy if you're Sanguine. You might lose one on the left side, but you're getting the Fire Giants.
Or are you? Just about they will. That's a Kraken that Wolfie could be proud of, who's watching in Europe right now. Maniac needs some help. Maniac needs anything. He's not going to find it, as he will now be dead for the next minute of time. Simplicity, meanwhile, have Faeles and StreakUp getting a tier 2 on the left-hand side. That's some gold. That's opening a window, but they've got to come back to defend soon.
They're not going to be able to probably defend the Phoenix in time, but they need to be present in case Sanguine commit to the Titan, which should be the case, having the enhanced Fire Giant.
Let's see if they do. They take the right one and start to rotate to mid lane. Simplicity have 4 members alive. Beads are available for the carries too, alongside the ultimates. Hammer from Genetics does hit onto Panitom on the front side, but the Phoenix has fallen down, and Sanguine this time, arguably the correct call, will take the middle Phoenix and fall back to defend the left-hand side and pressure the tier 2.
The reserved call.
Yes.
I like it, because if they all in commit, they're going to lose way too much in response.
2 times in a row, you lose at the Titan, you've got to change something, and I think this is the correct call.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Not going to make that same mistake 3 times in a row. Sanguine going to wait for greener pastures to present themselves, because honestly, Simplicity were just caught a little bit too off guard by not having the vision around Fire Giant. Sanguine pushed up as a unit. With that 1 pick onto Deathpanter, having that 5-on-4, the whole map was theirs to do as they please. No real way that Maniac was going to steal that Fire Giant up against Sheento's Kraken.
Now this is a best of 3, remember, and Simplicity are up 1-0. This one's not over just yet, however. Simplicity still have a chance. We've seen them defend well. They've managed to hold up the Titan line. They've managed to hold out a Phoenix line. There's only 1 Phoenix remaining now. And could this be a base race?
It could be.
There's a lot of attack speed Simplicity have, you know.
Simplicity could definitely win that one, but no, they actually want to commit to play defense now because their Titan is completely exposed.
Ronngyu leading them in. No minions on this left-hand side just yet, and no carry either at the moment as he's trying to get in range. Genetics to the backside, Maniac with the ultimate too. Looking for a storm which hits onto Netrioid. Looks like we saw the ultimate at Deathpanter as well, but the Kraken deleted Maniac. Genetics has barely any health left alive, and the bees will do the dirty work. Now Oxiledeon alongside Sheento, and Panitom will take down another member, and a celebratory Wingfire Wheels will be taking us to a Game 3 between the North American Minor League team Sanguine and Simplicity.
The number 2 NA SML team giving the number 1 EU SML team a run for their money, bringing this set now into a 3rd game. What a performance, being able to bounce back mentally after a 40+ minute game with still some errors to be fixed with some of these ending calls. I think that both teams are playing a little bit sloppy. There's definitely some nerves you could just see between these 2 teams, because whoever wins this is guaranteed to go through the bracket into the finals to see who faces off against Dignitas or Rival.
Completely agree as well. You talk about the nerves factor there. I think it's both teams have felt time and again they should be winning this game, and it's come back to haunt them a little bit. 2 games down though, and we're still no closer to find out who's going to win. Finch, Taco, tell us all about that game.
I'm so glad you didn't ask me to say who I thought was going to win, though. It's been so back and forth. It's so hard to tell at this point. What a set. MSI has not disappointed so far, and I can't think of a reason why it might in the future here. Taco, you got to talk to me a little bit about this set, though, that we just watched. I mean, multiple times they try and end, and they can't get it done, and Simplicity are back in it. I thought we were going to have a base race there at the end, but they back, and they get kind of run over. I mean, what was the big thing that you take away from this set?
This is scary now for Simplicity. That's number 1 on my brain, and the reason why is because Sanguine, to come back after a Game 1 defeat in the fashion that they suffered, to take over now in Game 2, that is a lot of game momentum to kind of careen them through the rest of this set. I mean, 1 game on the line, best of 1 essentially, if you really want to, boil it all down. And the main thing that's really stuck out to me though was Sheento on this Poseidon. It was I don't want to say a night and day performance, because it's not like his hell was a poor display either, but it's just that Sheento has just been absolutely on fire so far.
I mean, Sheento's the carry for this team. I do think that that is a correct analysis. I don't want to say everyone else can't contribute and can't carry when they need to, but more times than not, they play through this guy in the middle lane for this team, and it does make them so difficult because he can do it in so many different styles. I mean, Hell and Poseidon, that's about as different, I think, in terms of contributions to your team as you can get between this one person's this big bursty cooldown that you've got to nail, and then like Hell, who's this sustainy, who positions so differently. So he's such a versatile tool for Sanguine.
The Terra switch up as well was massive for Sanguine. I think that Terra was able to bring that extra little oomph of damage that Sanguine were kind of missing out on in game 1 to close out their fights. There weren't really any question marks surrounding who was dying from Simplicity. They were just falling.
It's also a big sign for me that Sanguine has now twice in a row made this Horus work. I know they didn't win game 1, but I don't think you can lay that at the bed of the Horus. Throughout the early game, it has twice in a row worked for them. Is there any chance they maybe have to take that away from them too? Because Ronngyu has looked really comfortable to me on this pick, and in the late game, the sustain's been there for them, the control as well. I don't think it's gone away.
The problem is for Simplicity, though, is they're going to be in a tight spot if they pick that first pick position and look to try and strip away the Horus, because they opted for Freya and Hell bans in game 2. In game 1, it was Erlang and Freya, but the one consistent they've had is keeping that Freya locked out. So if they were to opt for a Horus ban, I would imagine that would have to take place for the Hell, but then that just leaves Sanguine open to either Muzen or a Hell run back for Sheento.
Yeah.
And that Hell was quite literally Hell for Simplicity to deal with.
This is a bit of a picks and bans conundrum now for Simplicity, because the Muzen has come through multiple times, the Horus has come. I mean, it's so difficult to try and make sure they're taking everything away from the Sanguine roster, because that Keystone, like you mentioned there with Sheento, can play so much. It's so difficult to ban him out entirely. Then where do you try and focus? Maybe you keep Oxy from playing comfortable things, but he performed even better on the Terra than the Artio. I think it does become a difficult problem for him.
Simplicity, I think, came into this set today kind of expecting to encounter the Sanguine from yesterday, who was dealing with that rival console team.
They said it, right?
I can't stress it enough, Finch. Sanguine is a team where they're going to feed off of your life force, and that feels like exactly like what they're doing to Simplicity right now. There's tension very clearly.
Let's go, Hawk!
Faeles trying to get a little bit of that back massage from Hawk.
That's big plays from the coach right there, man.
They need the support, man. I mean, Faeles has been trying to carry Simplicity all day, but it just hasn't necessarily worked out in their favor, at least not there in game 2. And as long as Sheento is able to be such a catalyst piece for Sanguine, then Simplicity have to be concerned. Deathpanter's tried applying pressure to him with some heavy pressure picks. You've got Ullr, you've got Hachiman, and neither has really been able to connect.
Now, I do want to say, I think this is Simplicity's first time being first pick, because Sanguine got it the first time, and then they picked it when they lost after game 1. So we'll see if maybe that is the adjustment Simplicity want to make here. In that first pick, maybe they can kind of bully Sanguine a little bit and try and limit their options. But the Freya Hell, I mean, that's the same things they were banning either way, right? Last game was in the second pick, so they're not making too many adjustments. It's just a question of maybe they can be the one that grabbed the Muzen comp at the first pick. Sanguine have picked up AMC first pick every single time. Maybe they can take that away.
This is a risky toss-up, though, for Simplicity, because Sanguine, not fully convinced that they want to ban that Muzen, but I'm starting to believe it might be the correct direction to head in. But no, instead it's going to be the Osiris, and Simplicity now have the option to look for that Muzen if they want. And
why not?
Sure enough, that's going to be the takeaway here. And now it's up to Sanguine to prove to us that they have a strategy to beat this.
Maybe they should prove that Merlin is still in the game. I would love to see that be proven, but maybe it's not something that Sheento is comfortable playing. I mean, he's looked great on everything else he's played so far, right? So why switch it up? Sanguine has elected to go previously into like the Horus in this one with that second pick. Maybe they'll grab Naja here. Chronos still open. That's viable if they want to grab that one here too. But yeah, they're going to go to Horus right away. They love this pick for Ronngyu.
Sanguine are playing rather aggressively, so it's been working out for them fairly well. And with the Chronos being locked in, very happy to see that Sanguine aren't going to opt to let Simplicity take both Chronos and Muzen. Might have been a little bit too overwhelming otherwise. So Simplicity are just going to try to continue stripping Sanguine of tools that they've used previously, with Poseidon being removed, and now the Neja, Panitom, and
That's their whole
Sheento
comp.
are both going to have to figure something else out.
They're just taking their comp from last game, right? The Naja, the Muzen, and the Poseidon, they were all running in that last match. And Simplicity are just saying, listen, we're just taking it away from them, do it on something else. And the Muzen, fine, that's just a strong pick right now. Everyone probably wants that. But the Poseidon and Naja, that feels a bit pointed, as in we're telling Sanguine to beat us on something else.
I almost want a Terra here right now for Sanguine
Really?
and just get the front line locked in for Sanguine and worry about the burst damage after the fact, because Simplicity are still going to have to reveal the last couple of pieces that they're looking to work with. And sure enough, Sanguine going to take that Terra right away. I think that this is going to be a really important tool at Sanguine's disposal now, because we just mentioned it. That Terra's Blessing was really the make or break difference in a lot of those engagements in Game 2.
It is not just the burst they got to worry about, though. What about for Panitom? What's he going to be selecting here coming into this next match? He'll have to decide that on the back end. The good news is their last pick, Taco, when your second pick, and what they have open, I imagine at this point, is either the flex between Netrioid and Sheento, right, where they want this Chronos to go, and then the jungle. Would you rather have your jungler pick last, or I guess the flex between Netrioid and Sheento?
Probably rather have the flex between Netrioid and Sheento. Sheento is who Sanguine primarily works out of. Simplicity are more than aware of that by now, or at least they have to be.
Let's hope,
by
right?
now. And with that in mind, then Sanguine should continue to target all these dive backline characters, which is exactly why we see Jormungandr, Osiris, and Raven as the three cannons that they took away. Osiris might seem a little bit oddball for those of you back at home, but I can assure you, the sole reason why is because Lord of the Afterlife is an excellent engagement opportunity into the backline, and the last thing Sanguine need is for Sheento to be getting harassed.
I wonder if there's a chance that Sheento might even last pick into something else. Like, Hell's a strong healer, but so is Afro. Maybe there's a chance if they keep his pick for the end of the game, they can go into a healer or something that would normally be really vulnerable and try and catch Simplicity off guard. That last pick to me could be potentially very interesting in a third game, the decider match here. So Simplicity to try and keep their options flexible throughout these last two picks, as Sanguine really wait and hover on what they want to do with their last ban, and they're going to go at the Pele.
I was almost wondering if maybe they were debating trying to ban away a Kepri here. For Simplicity, you know, one issue that they definitely encountered in Game 2 was just that lack of reinitiation capability, but a Kepri with the properly timed Scarab's Blessing could definitely force Sanguine back, and we know that Genetics has it in his God Pool as well, and pretty dang good one at that.
Well, it probably wouldn't feel too bad to grab the jungler here and then allow Sheento to maybe take a look at this draft and then decide where he wants to go. Does he want to keep the Chronos for himself? Does he want to pick his own mid laner? And it looks like that is the call Arachne picked in. This gives them a very strong 1v1 boxer. I think Arachne doesn't always want to fight right away. She can do some really good job clearing in the jungle and maybe wants to focus on that, but she can also just beat you if she catches you out, so this is a nice pick for Panitom.
Erlang's still open as well if Simplicity really want to buckle down with early game pressure, and if Erlang does come through, then I would probably anticipate it to be for Genetics, but then again, Erlang and Neja fairly interchangeable between jungle and support as choices. Hell, I mean, I could even see maniaKK trying to play the Neja in solo, but it's going to be the Ratatoskr instead. Keep in mind, Sanguine banned this away from Faeles in Game 1.
Right.
We haven't really had a revisit to it ever since. It was Turnabog and Raven that was their third and fourth ban options in the secondary games. So now Faeles, when Simplicity's back's against the wall, is trying to fall back to what he knows best.
That's a great point. Faeles loves this Ratatoskr and can play it really, really well. And I talked about how Arachne can have some strong early presence, but it's pretty hard to beat Ratatoskr on just about anyone in terms of early presence. Pre-level 5, he's a nut, not to make a pun. And then also once he gets that ultimate level 5 as well. So this is great for Simplicity and the Zhong to round it out. Gives him a ton of AoE to go along with the Poseidon.
It's really easy to do though, isn't it? The unintentional pun.
Yeah.
I feel like I do that so often, and I swear I'm never thinking about it.
Yeah, the pause there was me trying to find a way out of it and to not do
And
it.
then you
I was
can't.
like,
You're
and
just
then I was like,
well,
nope, I gotta do
I
it.
have to go over the cheesy line now.
Jing Wei comes through. Okay, so this is Jing Wei is still a pretty strong pick. This gives him some safety, some late game crit, especially into a not very tanky draft. I actually really like this Jing Wei pickup here.
And this was a beautiful Jing Wei selection here for Netrioid. It's also going to give him the flexibility option to prioritize crit in his build, and Hunters always fare best whenever they're able to get away with crit chance damage there, Finch. And not only that, but Jing Wei also excellent if she gets pulled by the Windfire wheels. just on the case that she bounces when she lands, she still has the ability to agility away.
Right.
Airstrike as well is really efficient, and agility is also super efficient against the Ratatoskr on gank opportunities.
This is a great last pick here for Sanguine. It feels like a lot's going to come down to how well they can get this Arachne to work for them, though the early game has looked strong. Meanwhile, on the other side, Simplicity just have a lot of picks that really work for them, and they force Sanguine to change their draft. I think both their teams have actually done a pretty good job in the picks and bans here for game number 3. And Taka, I got to ask you the tough question. Which way you leaning?
If Sanguine don't fold to early game pressure from Simplicity, and
From
if
Faeles in
Simplicity aren't
particular.
able to snowball, then I think Sanguine actually has a chance to upset here and bring this set home, Finch. The main reason being I'm looking at Horus and I'm looking at Terra.
Well, let's see if that upset can happen here. The winner of this match makes it into the rest of the MSI bracket. Let's get this over to Hindu and Toli.
Well, it all comes down to this. Simplicity, 1 win. Sanguine, 1 win. This time, though, the compositions have definitely adjusted. Simplicity are going to be the order side this time. Sanguine on the chaos, and already Simplicity aggressive onto the left-hand side. More than anything, to get rid of some sneaky, dirty, tricksy little webs that Arachne's going to be placing.
Simplicity did their research as to how Panitom starts off on this Arachne, dropping the webs on the red buff to maybe allow Ronngyu to solo that one out. Not going to be allowed this time around. Going to slow down the start from Panitom. And I think the Arachne pick was just to discourage any potential invades. It's like, hey, listen, I'm tired of getting invaded. If you invade me, I might just kill you.
Keep an eye on Genetics here, because this is the first time he started in the duo lane on the support option. Blink in, ring toss on Netrioid. Netrioid knocks himself up to try and buy some time, but he still needs help, and he ain't gonna get any. Genetics will get first blood. Well, it's either a speed buff or a first blood. Which one do you want to give him?
Genetics is 3 for 3 for making a huge impact in all 3 games. I think this one, of all the impacts, has been the strongest, because now StreakUp has the opportunity to invade the purple buff after the fact. Netrioid not going to lose too much farm because of the Jing passive, but still, that death did go to the credit of Genetics. Now, obviously, supports, you would rather be on someone else, but a Naja support is a good look.
Sash from Genetics just as a swamp him. StreakUp connects the ring toss too. Not a favorable bounce, but Panitom. Hello, hello, hello. Beads are available for StreakUp if he wanted to go in there, but he changed his tune at the last second, so no further aggression from Sanguine. On the right-hand side of the map, though, Toli, we've not spoke about it just yet, but there's a Zhong over there this game for maniaKK. One of his bread and butters from days gone by. Is this to try and make use of the situation they present?
It definitely is, and I think that it should be A-OK in terms of surviving any sort of pressure from Panitom. In a matchup against a Guardian, maniaKK has all the freedom to do whatever he wants, and even getting a blue buff over Oxy because of that invade, so a huge advantage now. Totem of Coup has been maniaKK's all set long, not even one, I think, from the likes of Oxy thus far.
Yeah, definitely something a little bit more aggressive coming out of the solo lane this time from maniaKK, just to maybe make a bit of better impact in the team fights, because you can't leave the Zhong unchecked. He's going to have sustain, and he's going to be very, very damaging.
Now, to be fair, the last game, the Amaterasu is also a great team fighting goddess between her mobility, between that CC ultimate, but it just wasn't enough there.
It's just more like a different flavor, you know? Amaterasu versus a Zhong. That's why I'm more interested, because I feel like Zhong is more of a damage threat than an Amaterasu. Am is more of a nuisance, an unkillable nuisance, so to speak. Whereas Zhong is going to be like, hey, you have to pay attention to me, or I'm going to turn the game around.
I totally agree with you in that aspect. I think that Amaterasu is probably better the longer the team fight lasts because of that aura, but if you are too clumped up, maniaKK is going to make you pay that ultimate price. And it's also so difficult to gank a Zhong. It's also difficult to gank an Amaterasu, but the way players have been building these mages or guardians with the Pythax piece, that lifesteal gonna be a big factor.
Well, this time around, Simplicity got the first blood this game and still have a lead again. Faeles, though, trying to invade the blue buff on this right-hand side up against Panitom and Oxy. Won't manage to find it this time round. It's a good job from the boys in, well, red this time round are causing problems. But the purple buff looked at by Genetics with that sash. Great knock-up gust from Netrioid yet again, as Faeles is trying to babysit the blue buff on the ground to make sure Oxy's not having it. And he's also not going to have any health by the end of it either.
A smart play, honestly. If there's nothing else for you to do on the minimap jungle side, you might as well identify where exactly the enemy is going and capitalize on it. Without a blue buff, this Terra pick becomes so much trickier to run.
Did Sheento steal his starter item there? That's just intriguing to me what happened. Because I'm not sure if he did have a starter because I wasn't paying attention. But the fact that first slot is empty here tells me that he may have just sold his Mage's Blessing at the start and then very quickly upgraded to a Pythax piece early on.
That's a big power spike play if he did. It's a huge investment too, because normally as a Chronos, you either want the basic attack damage from the Hunter's Blessing or the Mage's Blessing to be able to get that 10% cooldown reduction, to be able to deal extra damage with your time stop and timer. But still, Pythax Piece 4 minutes in is pretty good. 200 health, 10% cooldown reduction, 24% magical lifesteal is good.
I'm just trying to work out if it's the reason he's done it is for the actual health more than anything else. Sure, health is a major part of this item, but that extra 200 health, I believe you're going to get from Pythax Piece, may allow you to survive the Kraken or the Faeles dunk as well.
Sure.
And maybe just keep him up to get the rewind off. I'm just trying to work out why he would do it.
That's one reason to get it. Like, if you don't have access to the Aegis, that health will help out. Obviously, the timing of the Pythax Piece was completed as Deathpanter and Sheento was level 5, so Kraken is a big threat. That 200 health could boost you over the edge to get off the rewind, but you're sacrificing a lot by selling off that blessing.
I do think, though, that at the same time, maybe, like you said, the lifesteal will come into play. It is an aura effect and does help out for the team. So maybe he wants to keep them topped up in health. And Simplicity going to do their best Sanguine impression there, missing the Windfire Wheels Kraken combo. And Panther is now under pressure. He's going to beads, but maniaKK is here. And the ghosts are being emptied at the moment. Fails in the sky, knocks up Ronngyu. Oxy turns up with a heal himself and the ultimate too. Ronngyu still dancing in, but a quick blink slash from Genetic sets up Faeles for the kill. Faeles, though, has spiders and has to run away. Still alive for the time being. It's a 2-for-1 trade in a very awkward position in the jungle.
Good rotation from Oxy, but it just wasn't enough. The damage was too much coming through from Faeles and Genetics. And we're getting word that it was actually a Mage's Blessing that was sold at the beginning of the game as he was leaving the base anyway. So he was kind of rushing it regardless.
It's better for me to check up and ask that question than have the fans at home go, what happened there? You didn't say anything. So, might as well just say I wasn't looking at the time. There was too much to talk about. With that, though, Simplicity then find 2 kills up against the 1 in that middle area. Definitely a bit of a miscommunication between Genetics and Deathpanter there, but we can't read too much into it, because like we said, we saw Sanguine do that earlier on.
That's right. Faeles was able to capitalize with that ultimate, being able to kind of put Panitom in an awkward position this early on without purification beads. When you use your Arachne ultimate, you're basically a sitting duck at the end of the day.
Well, with that left hand, Oracle's going to go down on that side. It looks like a split between the pair. StreakUp this time going to be piloting the AMC 2 games in a row. He's had to deal with the bees. Now he gets to provide them to the enemy team.
This is a huge identity shift for Simplicity's mid and hunter position, because normally StreakUp is the one playing the mages and it's Deathpanter playing the hunters. So maybe that's another reason why Deathpanter just needs to kind of, put some oil on the gears to get it more fluid.
And now right-hand side, this time round, maniaKK's done a much better job of pressuring onto this tier 1 tower. On the Amaterasu game in game 2, he dominantly won the lane, sure, but he didn't manage to take down that tower at all or get any damage on it for a considerable amount of time. Simplicity have paid a little bit more attention now to making sure they find an even bigger win out of a solo lane.
With a ready 5 Totem of Coup, 625 gold accumulated for Simplicity.
StreakUp under pressure, beads down. The airstrike connects, and that was just a masterpiece to watch. But maybe Genetics can turn this around. I'm just keeping an eye to see if he was going to try and catch someone there, but Sanguine playing it better safe than sorry.
He does have a blink, but Netrioid's still with beat, so even if he does get stunned, he should be A-okay that time around. A good knock up into the airstrike. StreakUp really had nowhere to go there without the use of his Aegis, and it's going to delay now that Transcendence that he's building.
It's always 3,500 gold lead so far for Simplicity here, less than 10 minutes in. That's a substantial amount for the stage of the game.
Another 500 gold because of that tier 1 tower. maniaKK has the advantage that we expect him to have. It is a substitute instead of Yarkor. Yarkor, the way he played in the online portion, was very aggressive.
I think Netrioid and Ronngyu just bit off more than they can chew. Windfire wheel stops Netrioid jumping in the gust. He'll have it afterwards to dash away, but straight into the grasp of the waiting AMC. And Faeles will get credit for the kill. Meanwhile, Ronngyu was just trying to do anything to get his teammate away, but ends up being a casualty of war because of it. And Simplicity get another 2 kills of Sanguine being a little bit too over-aggressive on the left-hand side.
Avenging their Hunter's death about a minute ago. Really wanting to punish the fact that Netrioid still didn't have the airstrike available for the disengage. Ronngyu was at the wrong place at the wrong time as well.
I think you're right with what you said there, mainly the airstrike. We just saw them get a kill with the airstrike, and being that far forward without it, on their own with just 2 of them, it's a little bit risky without wall coverage too. Simplicity now have a bigger window to open. The Gold Fury is available, and it's getting relatively low, relatively quick. And I'm starting to worry we're going to see the old classic best of 3 final game situation where it's going to be a one-sided affair here.
It's looking like it's a start. This is the fastest Gold Fury in the set. In game number 1, Sanguine got it around the 10.5-minute mark, so Simplicity doing them a little bit of a one-up. And every time in these games so far, it was Sanguine that had the kill leads, but they were doing a better job in the objective control, neutral ones. Not necessarily Gold Fury, but the mid camps, the back camp invades, the totem of coups. This time around, they're getting the best of every single category.
And now Ronngyu under pressure, who's been in this lane all day long. Fails in the sky, knocks up Ronngyu, stuns him too. Ronngyu trying to buy as much time as possible, but he won't be able to jump back to Netrioid in time. He'll fall down, as even maniaKK has made a rotation to mid now. Simplicity really starting to put pressure on this left-hand side.
This level 7 Horus not tanky quite yet. Sheento in a little bit of trouble, forced to use that rewind, but now maniaKK making his presence felt.
And there's Oxy going down too. His tower's already taken away, and Sheento's in the wrong part of town right now and doesn't really have an escape option. But Simplicity not interested in chasing there. Instead, they're looking to barrel down towers earlier. They've already taken the right-hand side, as we mentioned. The tier 1 in mid could fall soon after.
Faeles was trying to sniff out Sheento after the rewind was used. Couldn't quite find him there, but now he's going to be forced to play defense up against Netrioid. Split pushing Simplicity are just so on point with all the objective controls. Where was the Simplicity in games 1 and 2? Because even though they did win game 1, it wasn't clean at all.
It was definitely an anger situation, I feel like, here coming out from Simplicity, where they've managed to, well, they got first pick for the first time, I'd say. And so
Sure.
it's definitely switched things up a little bit here. But they're not letting off the gas, but they're not going to the extreme Sanguine did in game 1. They're taking it step by step, tower by tower.
Because the thing is, the way they ended the first phase online, they won 6 in a row completely. And it was in pretty dominating fashion, I would say. So the fact that they started off a little bit slow against Sanguine is surprising to me. Even though Sanguine is a very highly contested team, this is a team with a substitute still that has a completely different style than Yarkor, because Oxy has been playing all these passive Guardians between the Artio, between the Terra, and Yarkor is known to play like the Bellonas, the Osiris's, trying to like get in your face and contest you. So I think this is really hurting Sanguine's just feelings about the set.
Now, the winner of this one, remember, will go on later today to face off against Armada to find out, just for seeding, who will face off against Rival or Dignitas tomorrow. But if you're Armada right now, I don't know who you'd rather face with how this one's played out. Both teams are going to be warmed up.
Well, hold that thought, though, because in the mid lane, trading ultimate for ultimate, we were interviewing Armada a little bit earlier, and they kept making little jabs at Hurley. So I think they would kind of want to face Dignitas.
They want to face Dig?
Yeah, I think they do.
We'll see what they can do, but I wouldn't want to face either of these teams, first of all. At the moment, they're both playing pretty well. Simplicity, though, definitely with the advantage. Teleport coming in from Oxy, who pops the ult straight away. Kraken does delete him from the map, though. StreakUp credited with a kill. Netrioid trying to make sure he answers back, and it's Ronngyu who gets the kill. But Panitom ends up going down in trade to Faeles. Sheento, meanwhile, kept out of the action by maniaKK on that Zhong.
It's not every day you see a 12.5-minute tier 2 tower dive, but with this kind of lead from Simplicity, they're feeling confident to make that play. Even maniaKK was thinking about diving the tier 2 in the mid. His blink wasn't quite available. He was in combat as well, but still, splitting the map, controlling every aspect of it. With these 3 early game miners from maniaKK, this level 13 Zhong is really popping up 3 levels above his competition.
Yeah, game 3 seems to be a masterclass from Simplicity so far of trying to control this game. And hello,
No way.
hello, another fire giant. This one at 13 minutes being started. Rongyu's having none of it though. That was way too quick, Ronngyu. Way too quick on the initiation. He's going to end up falling down, and now Sanguine have a chance to gather troops and look to defend. The fire giant has still been leashed.
Oh, maniaKK gonna
it's
get
in the pit
stunned out, but he just narrowly avoids death. Sheento
Oxy.
forced to disengage.
Oxy's going to run away with the barest amount of health towards Netrioid, who turns up on the Jing way. The explosive bolts won't find a home on Faeles, but I guess, you know, it's not doom and gloom because Simplicity didn't get the fire giant.
Even though Simplicity have an 8,000 goal lead, I still think it's too early to go for this objective. There's still 3 tier 2 towers you can go for. The Fury is about to respawn. There's still plenty of items you can finish this time. This is what allowed Simplicity to win game 1, was Sanguine's impatient of going for a 19.5-minute fire giant. This time around, Simplicity trying to beat that record by 6 minutes.
Well, Fury has spawned once more. This time around it will be an Oni Fury, so that's going to give him a bit more push power to the tier 2 towers. It definitely does present the option of the fire giant again mentally. If these Oni Fury waves are going to push down the lanes,
That's one
and
way.
Sanguine's going to sit back.
That's certainly one way they can do it if they want to, or they can assist those waves to guarantee 1,500 gold across 3 waves. An extra 4,500 gold certainly wouldn't hurt the efforts of Simplicity to advance through this bracket.
Biggest experience difference really is in the jungle and solo lane positions so far. Oxy's done what he can, but at the moment the Windfire Wheels has come into play and caught Ronngyu and the wrong side of town. Oxy with a very good ultimate there with Sheento supporting, but there's no real damage just yet. It's only genetics low. Panitom trying to get in the front of the Arachne, but he's removed by the map from StreakUp. Into the sky goes Faeles, and where he lands is on Netrioid's face. He'll fix that one. Sheento gets a 3-man stun, but he's got no further follow-up damage available, and Simplicity get 3 kills for the price of 1.
Not gonna push with the Oni wave, instead gonna reset, spend all that gold in hand, and then look for the objectives after the fact. A great play coming through. maniaKK controlling a lot of space, the engagement from genetics. This is a support Naja that's putting himself out of position on purpose. He lands the ultimate, gets the follow-up that he needs from Deathpanter. A quick pick onto Ronngyu allows the rest of the fight to go Simplicity very swimmingly.
I think my biggest complaint about Sanguine in this 3rd game is the carry position. Sheento and Netrioid, they've been so instrumental in the performances Sanguine have put on here, but they're on such late game gods, Toli. It takes so long for both of these to really start to make an impact. You saw Sheento in the last fight, he found 2 3-man stuns, but it still wasn't enough to find anything. And now they're just having to play this waiting game where Simplicity are taking everything around them.
Oh my goodness, now Simplicity with a very early fire giant, completely dominating Sanguine. Nothing that they can really do about that one after losing the last fight the way they did. And you're totally right, Hinduman. The way Sheento and Netrioid have been able to carry the likes of Sanguine online doesn't translate in this set.
No, it does not, at least from the first 2 games. I mean, the set overall, Sanguine in those carry positions played really well, but they just not got the damage in the early game. Simplicity on a Phoenix at 16 minutes in. Ronngyu stuns genetics inside a whirlpool that was dropped there by Deathpanter, and the Windfire Wheels does the dirty work. Oxy will stay alive for now as maniaKK gets aggressive, but fails his follow-up. Is at least presenting enough of a window for Simplicity to take their first Phoenix of the game.
A 17-minute Phoenix on top, very fast this time around. I think Simplicity had fixed all of their mistakes this time around, and the answer was just simply getting the Poseidon and the Muzen comp.
Steal the B.
That's true. In game number 1, it was funny because Sanguine, they actually first picked the Muzen comp instead of Merlin. In fact, nobody picked Merlin in that game 1. I don't even know if it was banned in game number 2 either. Neither of these teams really wanting the Arthurian god, but instead they're prioritizing the Muzen comp. They realized that was the mistake in game number 2. They fixed that one. They allowed Deathpanter great follow-up, because also when they were facing off against Poseidon, Faeles couldn't really do much on the Erlang Shen in that second game, between the cripple, between also the burst damage, preventing the heal from going off.
Sorry, I'm looking at how this is played out, and I think this might be the last set we see a Muzen Cobb for a little while. The SPL games, the players are going to be here tomorrow. and still the rest of today. I think we're going to see more of AMC getting banned away from now on, not slipping through that net as often.
These teams have been kind of experimenting, leaving both Merlin and the Muzen Cobb open, and it seems that AMC is the favored one for sure, because it's all about the early game pressure. If you can translate that to purple buff invades, red buff invades, even just mid-camp control, is going to help you in the long run.
But I do like what Simplicity did here as well. Even though they had AMC in the duo lane, they protected the AMC.
Yes.
Because he's definitely susceptible in the early stages, and that's why you saw Faeles and Genetics spend most of their time over there.
They kind of protected him by allowing Genetics to start or to strike first.
Yeah.
Because no one else could go on StreakUp as a result.
I think it was more telegraphed because Ronngyu has done it time and again. There's a quick frenzy coming out though from Simplicity looking to engage on the fight. maniaKK in the back line going to use the ultimate and buy a bit of time, tank it up as long as he can. StreakUp still whacking away on the Phoenix and it will go down. Faeles looks down on Sheento and gets the rewind out as the Windfire Wheels has picked up Panitom and deleted him from the map on landing. maniaKK gets the kill on Ronngyu, Oxy soon follows, and that could be that. It took a long time for Simplicity to get to this point, but I don't think it'll take long this time round. In under 20 minutes, Simplicity have had enough. They're moving on to face Armada in the finals here today.
Congratulations to the #1 European SMITE minor league team, beating the #2 North American representative in a very epic best-of-3 game. 40+ minutes in game #1. With a healing composition, a very interesting creative one from Sanguine, almost sealing the deal. You got to look back at that 19-minute fire giant in game #1 where Sanguine were a little bit too rambunctious, but then in this game #3, Simplicity with the lead, able to get a 15-minute fire giant instead.
We're in Season 6 of SMITE now, and generally when you look back through everything that's happened over the years, it really comes down to mistakes made, more than actual plays made between the winning and the losing. Both teams in those games have made mistakes, and they were both punished for
It's not necessarily all about the mistakes, it's how the other team capitalizes on those mistakes. And so far, I think that Simplicity and Sanguine went back and forth in games 1 and 2, but that third game, Genetics, opened the door wide open with that dual lane gank.
I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't mind another 2 games of that if I could have him, but not this time round. Simplicity advanced, Sanguine eliminated. Let's throw it back to the desk to break down this set.
A tough loss there for Sanguine, but it's hard not to feel good about the strong performance Simplicity just put forward here, Taco. Congratulations to them. Along with Armada, they've made their way into the MSI bracket. The work's not done. They'll be fighting in just a moment for seeding, but those 2 teams already know they're going at least till Wednesday.
And this was just the start for a lot of these teams, or at least the start for Armada and Simplicity to make it this far. Huge congratulations to both of these teams, of course, but the damage isn't done just yet. Still need to see who's going to be playing against who, and well, when your decision's Rival or Team Dignitas, I'm not sure that it really matters right now.
No, those are both really difficult obstacles, whichever one of them you end up with. And if it sounds like I'm putting off breaking down that last game, it's because I am. All I feel like I can say is that Simplicity ran over, Sanguine in that last matchup just now. And the reason I'm stuttering is I want to just talk about how much Faeles played well in that game. 7-0-9 on the Ratatoskr. We said it right here on the desk, Taco, in these very chairs. If they can avoid this early game pressure from this Ratatoskr, I think they can win this game. They could not avoid the early game pressure.
It was just too overwhelming considering the side lanes. For one, Sanguine didn't really have too solid, I think, of side lane pressure because they didn't have Netrioid on that AMC, and they... Well, the Terra, I don't really have too many gripes with, of course, but it just felt like Panitom wasn't really able to connect early on with this Arachne, and it felt like the Arachne was also more of a forced pick than anything else. Maybe Sanguine thinking that they needed to try and match some sort of early game aggression from Simplicity, but Simplicity were all in already.
That's right. I mean, there was a couple of issues, right? That the Muzen Cobb was taken away along with the Poseidon, that hurt them. But consider this was the first time I feel like maniaKK really proved that the fact that Oxy was there was hindering this Sanguine team into the Yarkor. He really bullied him this game in that solo lane, taking the tower at something like 7 minutes into the game and then rotating on the Zhong. Then you factor in how far ahead that Faeles was against this Arachne for Panitom. They really did fall behind too soon, and I think finally we saw a bit of the difference between these 2 teams here in game #3.
Faeles just had too much access to farm, and it was largely because of the fact that he had his support able to strip away the dual lane farm. Panitom just did not really know where to start when it came to his jungle, and I don't blame him when there's essentially a Ninja and a Ratatoskr frequently stripping all of that experience away from you, forcing Sanguine to split more often in the waves themselves, and because of that, it was just a slow but steady trickle-down effect across the board for Sanguine, where eventually everybody just fell 1 to 3 levels behind. I agree with you, though, wholeheartedly, Finch. I think that this was maniaKK really stepping it up here for his team.
I agree with you 100%, man. What a strong performance there from him. These were the two teams that we expected, right? That it would be Armada in the end here, and that it would be Simplicity. It was a little bit more drama, I think, than perhaps we expected in getting them there. That's how heavily favored they initially were, but Hype Unit really stood up. Sanguine really stood up for me, too. I really loved the performance from those guys. They just unfortunately could not quite get it done, Taco.
Can't help but wonder. I think Sanguine's going to look back on Game 1 and definitely have some mixed feelings over it, because this set nearly was a 2-0, I think, Finch.
I think so, too. They almost had it, just could not quite close it out. But on a happier note, the winners for this one, Simplicity, are standing by. Let's hear a little bit from maniaKK and Faeles.
Thank you, Finch. I'm here with maniaKK and Faeles. Congratulations, first of all, over your win. You're now making it through, but you have to go over Armada to see who faces off against Dignitas or Rival. Got to ask you, your faces after the victory in game number 1 didn't look too thrilled. What were the emotions after that victory?
I mean, it was a pretty bad game by us, to say. I mean, that's the least I can say. So I don't know. I feel like the team is kind of let down from our performance, but hopefully we get a step up the next game.
Did Sanguine surprise you guys today? Because like coming into that, listening to Hawk on the interview beforehand, it seemed like you guys were quite confident in that. Obviously you found the W, but it wasn't as clean as all that. Did Sanguine really surprise you?
Yeah, we watched the games versus Rival, and like obviously I have a sub solo and they struggled against them. But then, like, they played the early and mid so well, and we weren't, and we weren't used to the Horus or the Hell or anything like that. So we came in prepared as much as we could, but like our gameplay was just lacking.
Game number 3 looked very clean and looked nothing like games 1 and 2 for both of you teams, honestly. So what was it between mental transition-wise that allowed such a dominating fashion?
I feel like we were just like, I guess, scared. Like, we fell behind so much in the first game. We were like 1-12 or 0-12, and then like by the time we realized what we had to do to win a fight, we finally did it at the end. But other than that, I think we just played too scared.
maniaKK, next question to you, really. Honestly, it's not always easy when you know you're against a substitute in the lane of trying to abuse the situation. How hard is it for you to actually deal with that sort of situation of going against a substitute expected to win the lane and then maybe not doing as much as you would hope?
I mean, I'd rather play against the full team. It's always better, because I feel like when you play against a team that's playing with a sub, I feel like you're kind of handicapped, right? So the win doesn't feel as good, especially the way we played. So I don't know. I tried to do my best. Like I think I had the early game lead and mid game lead like every game, even though like the first, second game didn't really matter, I don't think. And then the third game, I mean, I had a huge lead and we just snowballed the game.
Zhong special, right? Last question then. You're going to face off against Armada next. Are we going to see 3 games again, or are we going to see something different?
I think we're warmed up now. 2-0.
Cheeky 2-0 for the boys?
Quick
All right.
2-0.
Well, best of luck to you guys. That's Simplicity Esports. We'll see you guys on the screen after the break.